Deixa-me ver isto.
A diverse bunch these days, spread across a huge variety of platforms, demographics, and genres. But let me tell you that there is one thing that unites all gamers, and debatably, all human beings. You lot absolutely love to complain. Don't get me wrong, a lot of this complaining is justified. You people complain about Nintendo shutting down really cool fan projects, you complain about companies putting out unfinished games all the time, and you rightfully complain about Blizzard somehow managing to outgreed anime stuff in the pay-to-win department. But there's one thing that the gaming public loves to whine about that's a little bit more complicated than you might have imagined, and that's the idea of something being overpowered. Whether it's a particular faction in a strategy game, a character in a hero shooter, or a card in a card game, you can't go 5 minutes without someone, somewhere, complaining that it's overpowered. And let me tell you, I'm sick of it. Not just because this conversation is seemingly impossible to escape, but because I think overpowered as a word has kind of an unfair stigma. Yes, a single strategy in a game being too powerful, resulting in you not being able to play the way you want, totally sucks. But in obsessing over perfect balance, ensuring that nothing is overpowered and that everyone's on equal footing, I think we often accidentally make games less fun and blind ourselves to the idea that a little bit of imbalance can actually be a good thing. I'd argue that not only is something being over or underpowered not always a negative, but that a bunch of great games, and in fact entire genres, actually hinge on having mechanics, strategies, and characters that are deliberately imbalanced. Now, that might sound like a crazy thing to say. For what possible reason could developers want certain strategies or approaches to be objectively more powerful than the alternatives? Well, first and foremost, let's be honest with ourselves. Being overpowered feels awesome. There's a certain sick pleasure in absolutely grinding someone into the dirt, and while multiplayer games can't completely lean into this thrill, single-player titles can really make the most of just how awesome being totally overpowered feels. Including transparently overpowered options can be a shortcut towards creating some great moments of triumph and catharsis, as well as giving players a way to experience the game's core fantasy right away without needing to master the mechanics first. Speaking of fantasies, look at Final Fantasy's Limit Break mechanic, a beloved hallmark of the series, despite it being an incredibly shallow and basically overpowered move no matter which game it's in. The way limit breaks work is that as you take damage, you charge up a character's limit break bar, and when it's full, you get to unleash a big, flashy mega attack. That is, basically it. There's really not that much in the way of strategy to the limit break, and there's almost no reason to do anything else if your limit break is available. The original implementation in the original Final Fantasy VII even overwrites your attack when it's charged up, all but forcing you to limit break right away. But strategy isn't really the point here. Limit breaks exist as a way for you to perform epic comebacks when you're on the brink, or to finish off tough enemies in a stylish way, using a character's badass signature move, which is fun in of itself. Similarly, in normally pretty tricky brawlers, like Bayonetta or Jetstream Sam's Handsomeness Adventure, moments where the game flips the script and lets you just totally go to town on an enemy can be a great way to reward good play, or just to take the edge off for a bit. Bayonetta's insta-killing torture attacks are pretty straightforward on a tactical level, but damn are they fun to pull off. And Blade Time in particular in Metal Gear Rising, more often than not just lets you go wild slashing something up, which is both an extremely powerful technique, and also feels cool as fuck every single time. Compare Platinum Stables to Devil May Cry games, which are just as empowering when you're playing well and comboing through legions of baddies, but lack those easy overpowered hooks into the core fantasy for newer players, leading to the DMC games being much harder to get into, even if they're about the same difficulty-wise. Leveraging the fun of being overpowered is a little bit harder to do in competitive games, for obvious half the people not having fun reasons, but it's not impossible. In Team Fortress 2 and Titanfall 2, your reward for victory isn't just a pretty you win sign, but instead you get to hunt down and butcher your enemies from a position of massive advantage, or they'll try and run away. These little Ender Brown moments don't take long, maybe less than a minute, so it's not a huge inconvenience to the losing team, but they do create some much needed catharsis at the end of a tough match, setting you up to start all over again. Similarly, in co-op games like Divinity Original Sin 2, the game lets you smash any semblance of fair play apart by working together with your teammates to teleport enemies into death fog, set up elaborate traps to rob people blind, or do really impressive combo moves that completely bypass fights.
Sounds great.
The fact that most of the really cool and most OP stuff in Divinity requires multiple players isn't a coincidence. Being overpowered feels awesome, yes, but because of this, games can actually trick you into playing in a particular way. In basically all the best co-op games, players are dramatically more effective when synergizing their abilities than when working independently, and this is because players like feeling useful, and they like winning even more. So we're naturally pushed into playing co-op games with synergy in mind, not just because it's the most powerful strategy, but because the designers intended this to be the case. When you get right down to it, all games will invariably have a most powerful strategy, and when it comes to titles people take seriously, the player base will work out what that is sooner or later. So it makes sense for designers to preemptively balance their games in such a way that the best tactics lead players into playing in a way that's the most fun. In Doom, glory kills, insta-killing enemies and restoring precious health pushes you to play much more aggressively. In Fire Emblem, story-centric Lord characters are much more powerful than everyone else, so you'll become attached to them very quickly. And in logistics games like Satisfactory, automation is much faster than crafting things by hand. We don't consider
para jogar
them to be
Satisfactory um dia?
overpowered, even though they totally are, because their purpose is to encourage us to play the game in a more fun way. Tempting players into engaging with the game in a particular way through the use of imbalanced systems can be a potent way of controlling their actions, but it can also backfire. Many card games make the mistake of introducing new archetypes that lie above the existing power curve so as to encourage players to have fun using them. However, in the case of Hearthstone's Demon Hunter, or like 20 different things
Está em early
in
access.
history, these overpowered new elements didn't enrich the strategic landscape but
Eu nem faço
completely
ideia como é que essas
overshadow
coisas
everything
estão.
else. No one single part of the Demon Hunter's core tempo deck,
Capa?
or Magic the Gathering
Quer dizer que já não está
affinity
em
keyword, was the culprit in making
early
them
access.
overpowered. The strategies as a whole were simply way more powerful than everything else, meaning everyone either had to play those exact decks or a tailor-made counter deck if they wanted to stand a hope of competing. As you might imagine, this was kind of the opposite to the intended goal of encouraging people to experiment with new things. To avoid this problem, many games push not overarching strategies, which often leads to the overpowered strategy becoming overly centralizing, but individual mechanics or components of a bigger playstyle, allowing players to use them as a jumping off point for a whole variety of different approaches to victory. Look at Halo. Absolutely no one is going to
Esta conversa tem que se dividir em multiplayer e single player, não é?
when you've only got a crappy plasma pistol is a fair fight. It just isn't. Power weapons in Halo are categorically and deliberately OP, allowing for one-hit kills and sometimes for individuals to go toe-to-toe with vehicles on foot. However, while these weapons might be imbalanced in an individual skirmish, the fact that they spawn in fixed locations and at predictable intervals adds an interesting side goal to the game that both teams have equal access to. Grabbing a power weapon won't instantly win you the game, but it might turn the tide in a stalemate or allow you to break through a fortified defense. This means that by their very existence, power weapons shift the impetus of the game away from beelining straight to the objective and more towards map control and coordinated pushes to either make the most of a big rocket launcher or to take out the wielder before they can do too much damage. The same goes for Battle Royale games like Apex Legends. Certain guns, like the infamous one-hit kill machine Kraber Sniper, which is fairly uncontested as the most powerful weapon in the game, can only be found in drop pods, which means that teams are going to need to come out into the open and risk getting into fights if they want the best loot. Playing safe and not going for drop pods is still a perfectly valid strategy, but for players who can't live without rare weapons, they're going to have to do the thing that makes the game the most fun. I think the best example of this approach in action, however, is a little video game called Dota, which owes basically its entire success to the fact that each and every one of its 100-odd heroes could be legitimately described as overpowered. The way Dota's heroes work, unlike the heroes in other more popular, more accessible games with better animes, is that basically every hero is oriented around one or two key mechanics that make them completely imbalanced in a way that gives them a totally unique playstyle. On the simple end of the scale, Sniper has a passive ability that allows him to hit heroes from more than a screen away and to safely besiege towers, and Legion Commander has an infinitely scaling attack buff that goes up whenever she duels someone to death. At the more complicated end, you've got heroes like Tinker, who can refresh all of his cooldowns at will to teleport around the map and spam out abilities faster than any other hero. And
Classic.
Nico, who starts off weak, but by the end of the game turns into up
Classic
to 5
Toga.
totally separate heroes, all running around and acting independently. Which is exactly as overwhelming and impossible to control as you think it is. You might think that each Dota hero having such singular focus on an overpowered identity would create massive balance problems and impossible to manage gameplay interactions.
Mas
And, don't get me wrong, it sometimes does. But when Dota's balancing philosophy works as intended, all those different overpowered heroes can hold each other in a weird sort of equilibrium where the unique strengths can interact in really cool ways that other games simply can't offer. Take Viper and Medusa for example, two reptilian heroes who both live in the middle lane. Viper is arguably the strongest hero in the game during the first 10 minutes, and will easily butcher just about anyone during this time. Whereas Medusa is basically defenseless until the late game, where she can abuse her insane ability to multi-shot the entire enemy team, creating this weird sort of cat and mouse game where Medusa has to get EXP and money for items somehow, but without getting owned by Viper until she's confident that she can turn the tables later on. Or what about Huskar, who attacks and regenerates faster the closer he is to death like a crazy berserker. He's super hard to take down because trying to kill him just makes him hit you harder. unless you happen to be Axe, whose special overpowered ability is to instantly kill any enemy below a certain threshold, but only in melee range. This means that Axe has to charge in and try to chop Huskarl's head off when he's at his most dangerous, while this flaming spear-throwing arsehole has to play safer than usual or risk entering the decapitation danger zone. Even more supporty heroes get a bunch of overpowered tools that drastically reshape the game, even though they're not the ones getting the kills. Crystal Maiden passively restores the mana of her entire team, meaning that they can spam out spells all game without needing to worry about potions. Earthshaker can create massive walls out of nothing, allowing
Não estou a acompanhar a conversa dele, infelizmente.
And Dazzle can cast a shield that renders whoever it's on literally
I had one job.
until it went, God damn it, Axe. I could talk about Dota all day, but the point is that imbalances on the micro scale can actually even out not just into a fair game, but a much more interesting one too, on the macro scale. But what if we took things a step further? What if instead of giving players a bunch of overpowered ways to pursue the same objective, we made imbalance a core part of the experience and had some players or a team of players who are literally more powerful than the others? Well, that brings us to the realm of asymmetric games. Now, just a point of clarification here, basically every game involving more than one player is asymmetric to a degree, from subtle stuff like chess being defined by the fact that white moves first, to different races in an RTS. But in the vast majority of cases, all the players are using the same fundamental mechanics, just in different ways. When I say asymmetrically designed games, however, I mean that different players are literally playing by different rules, and I think the key to making this very finicky genre work is knowing how to leverage overpoweredness to a game's advantage. Look at hidden role games like TTT, The Resistance, Secret Hitler, or Sussy Back Among Us. The bad guys have substantially more ability to affect the game than the innocents, both in the sense that they can kill people and maybe have other powers, but also the fact that they have way more information than everyone else. The fact that the traitor team are overpowered is why these sorts of games work at all. The only way the good guys can really win is when the more powerful players either make a mistake or get caught in a lie. The trick is being able to agree on when exactly that happened. This inherent difference in control over the game belies the fundamental problem with asymmetrically designed games. If one team or one player is objectively more powerful than everyone else, it's very possible to end up in a situation where some people feel like they have no agency because they never get to be powerful. The Gary's Mod custom game Murder, which sees a disguised knife-wielding murderer going up against an also disguised gun-wielding...
Eu, por acaso, este problema que ele está a dizer, eu já vi mais do que uma pessoa a dizer. Eu joguei o Among Us e fiquei logo frustrado e nunca mais quis jogar porque mataram-me na primeira ronda. E eu nem sequer era o mau. Vi mais que uma pessoa a dizer-me isto.
Detective amidst a bunch of civilians has this in spades. The problem here is that while the murderer and detective get to play a fun game of Sherlock and Moriarty, everyone else...
E essa cena do No Agency que ele estava a dizer fez-me lembrar isso.
Sort of has to wait around to die and be used.
Eu também joguei aquele dos lobos, da Vila dos Lobos. É o Among Us, só que, sei lá, a jogar in person. E de facto, opa, olha, em todas as rondas alguém morre, portanto, it's the same. São todos o mesmo jogo, na verdade.
Used as evidence, which isn't very much fun. The tragically doomed Evolve is also a pretty
Hello.
interesting case of exactly this happening. So, the way Evolve works is that there's a team of 4 hunters up against just one monster. Last team standing wins. Pretty straightforward so far. The interesting wrinkle in this setup is that the monster can, well, evolve, going from a tiny little stage 1 baby to a big stage 3 badass by eating other animals and growing stronger. At the start of the game, the hunters have a clear advantage.
É o Cell. Tu és o Cell neste jogo. Falar em ser o Cell, oh Toga, e aquele jogo de Dragon Ball, o que é que lhe aconteceu? Havia um jogo de Dragon Ball que ia ser isso. Uma das coisas que podia acontecer era um player ao Cell. Se calhar nunca mais vai sair. Cheira-me.
As it allows both teams to feel overpowered, the hunters at the start chasing down the monster, and the scaling beastie by the end, turning the tables. However, this setup fails to take into account player psychology. People want to feel overpowered and have fun being a badass, but equally, this means they'll seek out that feeling at all costs.
Outubro.
So, what ended up happening was that the monster had neither a tactical nor emotional motivation to ever even try fighting the hunters until it was max level, at which point the dynamic reversed and the humans gave up because they lost any chance at an equal fight. Gameplay in Evolve mostly revolved around the monster doing nothing but running away until the point that they were either caught and lost because they weren't at max power and didn't want to fight, or evaded the hunters for 15 minutes and basically won the game, with neither team really seeing much of each other at any point. In an attempt to make everyone feel powerful, Turtle Rock, the developers, accidentally just made everyone feel bored. One way around this problem of overpowered players having too much control is to instead give the weaker players ultimate responsibility for the pace of the game. In Spy Party, a secret spy is pitted against a nearly omniscient sniper who has to spot the spy and then execute them.
O problema deste gajo é que eu não joguei Team Fortress, então ele só mete merda do Team Fortress constantemente e eu do tipo, epá, ok. A sério, jogas este jogo? Jogas este jogo ou viste o Germa jogar este jogo? Diz a verdade.
In this way, the legitimate strategy for the spy is to just do nothing suspicious at all and make the sniper paranoid that they've missed something, leading to them making a mistake. Crawl is another fun example of this. 4 players are attempting to control the same human host, and the winner is whoever is human at the end of the game when the final boss falls, with whoever slays the current human taking their place. However, the only way to get gold to buff up your human and to make your human killing minions more powerful is to be a ghost. This creates a really interesting dynamic where the technically more powerful human is compelled to rush through to face the final boss because they know the longer they stick around, the more tenuous their grip on mortality becomes. Of course, the undisputed king of this approach is Left 4 Dead Versus, ironically made by some of these same people as Evolve. The survivors in Left 4 Dead are markedly more powerful than the infected, because they, have guns and can heal and can throw pipe bombs and stuff. It's no contest. The only advantage the infected have on their side is that they can respawn and the humans can't, meaning that the infected often have to work together not to kill the humans outright, but to disrupt, separate and whittle them down over time.
Nunca joguei este multiplayer. Só joguei o co-op.
Left 4 Dead Versus is so tense because every second the survivors waste dealing with a lone jockey or running back to save a teammate who got smoked is more of their resources wasted and more time for the infected to respawn and regroup for another attack, putting them under more and more pressure until the survivors finally crumble and are forced to make a mad dash for the
Ninguém gostou?
gleefully go to town. Or simply
Left 4 Dead multiplayer? Quer dizer, o versus, não é?
That's the most overpowered thing in the whole goddamn game. Some suspect level design and an otherwise great game aside, hopefully now you see why I think the word overpowered has gotten a bit of a bad rap. Sometimes a bit of imbalance is just what a game needs to unlock its full potential. What seems like an over-centralizing strategy can actually be encouraging us to play in a fun way. What feel like boring, overpowered moves.
Estás a ver, eu não acho que seja uma... Eu não acho que seja um hot take, porque eu já tinha percebido o que é que ele queria dizer com isso.
Enemies might just need for you to figure out your own OP solution. On a broader level, our fear of things not being perfectly balanced at all times often just ends up with games being sanded down into mediocrity. MMORPGs in particular often run into this issue. In an attempt to make all classes balanced, many developers often end up stripping away unique overpowered tools that make each one so...
Eu lembro-me da Eris estar sempre a queixar disto. Tipo os bonecos no fundo ficarem todos iguais no MMO. Apesar de serem todas classes diferentes. Isso é weird, certo? No meu tempo ninguém se queixava disso. Anyway.
All the classes, or simply remove these tools outright. Shamans in World of Warcraft are the biggest example I can think of, where once they had a litany of cool totems and arguably the best raid buff in the game in the form of Bloodlust, or Heroism if you're a boring Alliance player. Now a lot of these things have been taken away because they were difficult to balance, ending up with totems being neutered and both mages and hunters getting access to a reskinned Bloodlust, removing a lot of the individual appeal and utility of playing a shaman in service of an abstract notion of balance that didn't really make the game more fun for anyone. Not only that, a relentless fixation on
nobody
can
cares.
actually force some players out of enjoying a game. If the Call of Duty developers removed the glorious noob tube, many less skilled players would lack a way to feel like they're able to compete, and would probably get bored long before they'd learn that the tube isn't that powerful anyway. And imagine if fighting games like Street Fighter didn't have deliberately terrible joke characters like Dan. There is no moment more hype than beating an opponent with a character.
True, o Dan era grande cena.
Good, then those experiences will be lost forever. Oh wait, that's exactly what happened, and it sucked. Now he's just regular bad instead of fun bad. We tend to think of video game balance as a goal, a platonic ideal to shoot towards at all times. But it just isn't. Like many things, video game balance is just a tool, one that can be used in a variety of ways, for a variety of different aims. From encouraging
mas estás a falar de jogo, ele está a falar de vários.
Strategic landscape of the game. So I think it's worth relaxing a little bit and accepting a few overpowered things, because who knows? They might actually improve the experience if you give them a chance. And for those who disagree, might I introduce you to my favourite totally balanced game? It's very deep, people have actually been playing it for centuries, there's some very sophisticated commentary on capitalism and royalty, and it's just flipping a coin. That's the joke, I'm just making fun of people now. Hi, hello, and welcome to this thing I do
por acaso quero jogar
after
este
each and every
jogo.
video. Why did I start doing it? I've completely forgotten, to be honest. Why do I continue to do it? Well, that's so I can make some excuses about why this video was late.
Parece
It's been very
cool.
warm over here lately, and also I was helping out run the GMTK Game Jam. But mostly, it's so I can give some very deserving people some excellent shoutouts. First up, I'd like to celebrate a YouTuber who is absolutely fantastic, and you really should have already subscribed to, and that is Classics of Game. Classics of Game is... it's difficult to pin down really, but it's a channel
Deixa-me
all
só
about
fazer
posting
like
out of
e
context clips
subscreve.
from very weird video games. Sometimes they're terrible, sometimes they're obscure, and sometimes they're just from Japan, and sometimes it's all three. Genuinely, the channel is constantly surprising and hilarious. I'm very glad it came back from hiatus.
Qual é que vai ser o
It's been on my
puzzle?
recommendation list for literally years. Please go check it out. Of course, the other people I need to shout out are my ever wonderful, ever
Quero
patient
muito jogar este puzzle
patrons
game.
who choose to support the channel each and every month. Free
Era
me from
para
the possibility of
trás,
indentured
muito
servitude
bem.
in the
Até já.
NordVPN mines. Blech. In exchange for kicking a few bucks my way every month, my patrons get early access to videos, behind-the-scenes gubbins, and even some extra game analysis
MacGuffin.
that I couldn't fit into this video. Also, if you give me money on Patreon, consider yourself absolved for ad-blocking my videos, because as far as I'm concerned, you've already paid for yourself. The most generous patrons of all, however, they get a personal shout-out in the credits from yours.
Sorry, bro.
And
Levaste
those
com um
people
adblocker
are
no cu.
Alge, Andrew Lebrano,
Eat shit, bruh.
Asaran, Alna94,
Bruh.
Carla, Brian
Bruh.
Spalding, Brian Latoriani, Constantine Amend, Corey
Que?
Gerard,
Latoya
Cosmos
Toniani.
360, Daniel Medjes, Das Kangaroo, David Setzer, Dirk Jan Karambeld, Doltwo, Diggy Dog, Digletier, Ecton, Edward Franklin Woods, Eugene Bulkin, Yazkal, Retar Hannison, Jacob Dylan Riddle, Janos Fakete, Joey Bruno, Jordan Gear, Lee Berman, Lucas Slack, Mace Window 54, Max Filipov, Knox, NWDD, Nate Graff, Patrick Romberg, Peter D. Tomasak, Phil with the Bilby, Phoenix Thurikaz, Rajigar, Reddidex, Regal Regex, Ray's Dad, Sheldon Hearn, Simon Jacobson, Steve Riley, Strateger in Ultima, The Forbidden Shrimp, Tin Markovic, Tyler Duncan, Whimsical Wisp, Zach Grendel, and Ciao. Okay, thank you for watching.
Que é que eu faço agora?
It is very hot right now, and I will see you around. Bye!
Continuar a ver uns vídeos. Continuar a ver uns vídeos, meu. Só que agora enquanto vou buscar uns... deixa-me pensar. Enquanto vou buscar umas plantinhas e tal. Uma bruta de macão, que não, que eu tenho que dormir, meu. Caso tem aqui um copo para a conca, mas nem... Não, não, não. Não, 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 não. Então, só tens que respeitar. É a base de ser um decent human being. Merda, tenho que parar de ver o Twitter, meu. Fuck. Tenho que parar de ver. Ok, ok. Videos. Videos. Bora ver o Indiana falar sobre Lonely Man. Let's go. Are you a lonely man?
In an effort to try to support these lonely men, what we're actually doing is adopting views that are very justifiably criticized. But in
Acho que ele está a falar dos Red Pills.
those particular views, we're actually invalidating the core of the problem.
Eu acho que ele indiretamente está a
this
falar de Red
article
Pills.
About the rise of lonely single men was written by a PsyD and talks about how dating
Neozelandês a arranjar câmaras. Então queres meter vídeos de alguém a arranjar... Pera. Queres meter vídeos de alguém a arranjar câmaras enquanto eu estou a jogar No Man's Sky? Isso seria tipo... muito weird. Mas era cool ao mesmo tempo. Não queres ver vídeos sobre Lonely Man? Isto é rápido, isto é só 55 minutos. Isto passa no instante. Tu é que sabes o que queres meter? Isso é verdade, eu meto qualquer cena, não é? Isto se calhar dá-me mais... Qual é a palavra? Estímulo? Eu não sei, tu costumas depois ir jogar League of Legends ou assim, depois desaparece a conversa, não é? E depois fico só eu e alguém a desmontar câmaras. Não sei se isso ia ser a coisa mais hype. Não sei se isso é a coisa mais hype do mundo, vou ser honesto. Quem diz liga, diz, sei lá, Hunt Showdown ou assim. E lá vai o Aleph. Manda-me, não, mas manda-me na mesma para as DMs.
So I've been linked to this article by multiple people, which is part of why we're addressing it. And today what I'd love to do is talk a little bit about, is there a rise of lonely single men?
Is there?
If there is a rise, why that's happening and what we understand about,
It's the manosphere's fault.
I'd also like to talk a little bit about what makes this...
Os Red Pills estão a ajudar ou a criar lonely men? Isso é que é a verdadeira pergunta.
Why this is such a hot topic. So even already, I want y'all to pay attention to yourself. And as I say I'm going to talk about this, notice the emotional reaction that you're having. Right? So maybe you're sort of thinking like, oh, this is fantastic that
Estou a ter uma grande emotional reaction.
This really needs to be
emotional damage!
Oh my god, not another discussion about, toxic, lonely, single men. And we're going to be sort of exploring that sort of reaction and why that happens.
Sorry, it's too funny.
We're also going to touch a little bit. We've done this foray a couple of times. Sometimes
é literalmente só isso. É só um gajo. Um vídeo para aí de 2 segundos de um gajo qualquer a dizer emotional damage. It's pretty cool.
And it's been a hot button issue for us, but what we're sort of noticing in our community
Eu não lembro de
is
ser
that
mais
it's
do que
an
isso.
ongoing concern for so many people.
Acho que a primeira pessoa que me falou disso foi a Maria. Já viste? A Maria. Ouve. A Maria é que me falou de um meme. Não sentes que as coisas estão ao contrário quando isso acontece? A Maria a mostrar-me a mim. Está aqui, 4 segundos. Espera aí. All screen. Bem-vindo de volta. Vieste mesmo a tempo do emotional damage. I don't even know where this comes from. Eu acho que a Maria disse-me de onde é que vinha. Emotional. Espera aí, outra vez. Emotional damage. I'm sorry.
The other thing that we're going to address today is sort of how to critically read
Mas olha,
articles.
tens problema em nós vermos isto, Aleph? Eu quero saber se a culpa é da Red Pill community ou não.
Sometimes, I don't know if y'all are kind of aware of this, but Psychology Today and other publications are trying to get views, right? So they'll sort of pick titles and things like that.
They're trying to get views?
Kind of quite inflammatory.
Those
and will
bastards.
create emotional reactions. but we're going to tunnel down and look a little bit more critically at the sources that are cited, what the actual sources say, and I encourage all of you to really be critical when you're reading articles. So instead of sort of rejecting this article because it doesn't agree with your worldview, or, gobbling it up without any sort of critical thought because it
Isto parece-me conselho para a vida toda, certo? Just think about the things critically.
mirrors your own experience. What I think we really need to do, especially as articles are getting more and more clickbaity, is to sort of think a little bit critically about the points that they're making and what's supported by data and what isn't. I want to check in with y'all for a second about
data.
First of all, how do
What do you mean? Asking for source? Come on, man.
y'all feel about this? Is this okay for us to talk about? Are these like
Como é que dizia outro?
acceptable goals? Is there
Como é que dizia outro? We don't do that here. O gajo do Wakanda.
an acceptable sort of nuanced or critical way to look at this? Okay, awesome. So there's going to be a couple dimensions. We're not just going to be talking about this. We're also going to be talking about gender dynamics and critically looking at articles.
Gender
So it's going to be like,
dynamics.
it's not just, it's so simple. This is what's going on. Men are screwed, period. End of it. No, it's so much more nuanced than that.
End of
okay?
the end of it?
So let's start with a couple of acknowledgments just about gender in general, okay? So something that's going on right now on the internet is that people will talk about a specific gender-related issue. So for example, this article cites multiple things that are specific to men. So this article will say things like,
Homens
it's
gostam de
more
mijar em pé.
challenging for men on dating apps because 62% of dating app users are men. They also cite other sources, for example, that say that 46% of men will swipe right or will like or move forward with a particular dating profile, whereas 14% of women will swipe right or like or whatever the equivalent is. Right? So we can look at those statistics.
Olha, ela fingir que não sabe o
And
que é o
what a lot
Tinder.
of people will conclude is, see, things on dating apps are harder for men than they are for women. Now, this is a perspective that I think we've got to be really careful about. Because remember
Aleph,
that
estás aí?
anytime there's a particular article, there may be particular dimensions that are more difficult for men, but it doesn't necessarily mean that online dating is easier for men as a whole than it is for women. So, for example, there may be some things which are in quote-unquote women's favor or
Que tu
against
achas?
men, but then there are other things that are like in favor of men as opposed to women. So, for example, intimate intrusions online, studying the normalization of abuse in dating apps, or online
Filho de
inclusivity
uma
or sexual
puta.
harassment, conceptualizing women's experiences in the digital age. These are both primary literature studies, right? So these are not like editorial articles. These are
Wait, what's
peer-reviewed
destroyed?
published research. My point is that if we're going
Wait,
to wade
is this
into
my-
gender dynamics, we need to understand that just because a particular thing is easier or harder for a particular gender in a particular place does not mean that that gender has it harder globally or has it easier globally. Do y'all get that? This is a huge thing that you kind of learn in medicine. And just to give y'all a very simple example. So just because breast cancer is more common than testicular cancer
Whoa.
doesn't mean that it isn't hard for people to get testicular cancer, that it sucks if people get testicular cancer or any of those other things.
What the fuck?
When
Deploying
you are a practicing
combat
physician, what you
fragment.
start
What
to
does
learn
that
is
mean?
that there's sort of the global population stuff, which may be true. So, for example, breast cancer may be more common than testicular cancer. But at the
Fuck,
end
fiz
of the
merda.
day, that doesn't change the experience of the person with testicular cancer. And just because some of the statistics cited in this paper, which we'll also interpret, right, so that's really important, may suggest that things are harder for men, and I think that that's probably to a certain degree true in this particular dimension. It
Is this
in
my-
no way
my friend?
translates into invalidating like the difficulty that women have on dating apps. And this is sort of what we're learning as a society as a whole, which is that men and women and non-binary people or trans people, by virtue of our genders, we tend to experience life in a different way, right? And that just because a particular gender has difficulty in a particular realm does not
Why
mean
doesn't
that
this
gender
work?
has it easy in all kinds of realms, or that it's more beneficial on a whole to be
Anda
that
cá, filha
gender.
da puta.
Now, some people may make those arguments, and there may be statistics to kind of back that up. But in my overwhelming experience as a clinician, like, the key thing to remember is, first of all, different genders have different experiences of things in life. And that each gender, no matter whether you're a man, a woman, trans, non-binary, whatever, is going to face unique
Whatever.
challenges. And our goal here
That's
is
problematic.
to understand the world, understand ourselves, and help
Somebody
people.
needs to cancel this
And
guy.
in part of that process, what we
Whoa.
have to do is acknowledge the individual challenges that a particular demographic may face. That in no way invalidates the experience or should be compared to the experience of other people. I just don't think that's useful, right? So if someone ends up with testicular cancer, you don't want to say, well, screw you because way more people have breast cancer.
True.
On the flip
That's
side,
how you
there
say
may
it.
be unequal treatment, which is sort of appropriate there, which is like, okay, so for example, if breast cancer is way more common than testicular cancer, do we want to mandate not mastectomies, mammograms for mastectomies would be terrible.
This guy is being
Mandating
destroyed.
mammograms for women over the age of 50
I think it's my
where they
bros.
don't necessarily need to take an
By the way,
an
Toga.
X-ray of people's scrotums once they're over 50 years old.
Estás aí?
So by virtue of the
Também há-
difference
este jogo também tem a
in
mecânica de
size
teres
of
uma
the
team
problem,
contigo
we
à
may need
porrada.
to sort of individually create tailored
Mecânica?
solutions, which sort of
não.
makes sense
Sistema.
to me, right? So we sort of treat genders somewhat differently, and that's based on
Podes ir
But at the end
recortando
of the day,
e há
what I really
nas tuas
hope
fragrades.
happens from
Por alguma
this
razão os
talk is
fragrades controlam
anything that
tudo
we're
neste
going to
jogo.
say
Se
about
calhar é demais.
acknowledging men's difficulties
Mas lá
does
podes
not
ir podes ter uma squad
necessarily relate
e eles
to
aparecem
anything
sempre que andas à
that is
pancada
happening with women's difficulties.
contigo.
And that
O
actually,
problema é que tu não
comparing those
reparas.
two
Ok,
things,
são
I
as
think we're
linhas
actually
amarelas, estás a
doing a
ver? Os
disservice
gajos
to
têm três amarelos,
everyone.
acho que são os meus amigos.
Because just because there are more
Mas
men
não se
on
nota,
dating
é kinda
apps,
passive, estás a
the
ver?
challenges that women face on dating apps is
Quer
different,
dizer,
right? So there's
pronto,
a
olha,
lot
eu sei
more
que eles estão
research
ali, né?
that shows that
Acho que são,
women
yeah,
are
são
more
dois,
likely to
está certo.
experience sexual harassment, sexual assault than men on by virtue of online dating and things like that. So each gender is going to have its own individual problems. And what we're trying to
Mas sim,
really
já
do is
recortei dois
understand
gajos.
what problems
Podes
that
ir
affect this
aumentando.
particular gender in this
Au,
particular moment,
fodi
and
tudo.
what can we do about it? And
Já
then we
sabes.
can also do that for
Oi.
other genders and other situations and other demographics. Does that make sense? Are we okay with me continuing to talk about this? Or is it not acceptable to talk about challenges that men face in the dating realm unless we are at the same time
Vídeo sobre
talking about
Lonely
the
Man.
challenges
Quero
that
perceber se a
women
culpa é
face
dos
or
Red
making
Pills
it
ou não.
comparative in nature?
O Aleph sabe do que é que eu estou a
Because here's
falar.
the thing, gender dynamics is not a competition.
Eu aposto que ele não vai falar
Things
nada
are
disso.
hard
Quer dizer,
for men and
vai
things
falar
are
disso
hard
sem
for
dizer as
women.
palavras.
Some of the things that are hard for men and women are actually the same.
You know what I mean?
But some of them, shockingly, are different. And so if we really want to try to help people, we have to acknowledge
Vai falar
what those
sobre isso
differences are
sem
and
dizer as
address them
keywords que dão
individually.
trigger às pessoas.
Does that make sense? It's not a competition. All right. Do you need our? You're damn right. I need your permission. So your people are asking, do you need our permission? Yeah, I want. It's not so much about permission as it is approval, right? So this is where, like, if y'all are not
Se dependesse do
comfortable
Aleph, ele ia
continuing this
para a rua matar
conversation,
mulheres,
if
mas-
this is not a conversation that we should move forward in,
Estou a brincar,
then we can
estou a
stop.
brincar.
Got it? Okay.
Ora
And
bem,
by the way, if people think that I'm overstepping or
long-
misplaying or
long
anything
lost
like that,
knowledge.
please let us know, because all of that feedback is actually being instrumental in getting us to this point and helping us gain this nuanced understanding.
não é que eu tenho
Okay.
de ir.
Let's go. So let's take a quick look at the article. So,
Resource
younger and
depots.
middle-aged men are the loneliest they've ever been in generations, and it's probably going to get worse.
Oh
This is
no.
not my typical rosy view of relationships, but a reality nonetheless.
Psychology
Over the
Today.
last 30 years, men have become a larger portion of that growing group of long-term single people. And while
Se
you
vocês
don't
estiverem
actually
fartos
need to
deste
be in a
vídeo, metemos o
relationship to be
vídeo
happy, men are
de.
typically are happier and
Como é que chama?
healthier
Do
when
Aleph.
partnered. Here are the three broad trends in the relationship landscape that suggest heterosexual men are in for a rough road ahead. Dating apps. Whether you're just starting to date or you're recently divorced and dating
não quero
again,
falar
dating
besteira.
apps are a huge driver for new romantic connections in the US. The only problem is that upwards of 62% of users are men, and many women are overwhelmed with
São uma
how
loaded
many
gun.
options. And many women are overwhelmed with how many options they have.
Estás farto do vídeo do
Competition in
Aleph?
online dating
Ou
is
estás farto
fierce,
deste
and lucky
vídeo?
in-person chance encounters with dreamy partners are rarer than ever.
Imagina que aparece aí
So let's
fajardas.
stop for a second and try to look at this a little bit
Eu
critically.
curto porque eu curto ver
So
análises
first
de
thing to
coisas e não sei o
understand
quê.
is that this piece, so let me ask
E
you a
de
question. Is
debunks
this
de
piece
mindsets.
fact, or is it opinion?
Que o pessoal dá sempre
What do y'all
default para
think?
mindsets muito podres.
Right? So these statements right? So it's interesting. So there's a lot of confusion. So some people are saying
Pensas no
fact
que está a
and some
ser
people
dito?
are saying opinion. So I think this is a prime example of like what to be careful
Pera, estás a dizer
of
que não
when you
consegues
read
pensar
an
no que ele está a
article on
dizer?
something like Psychology Today.
Porque estamos
I
aqui
have no
todos?
doubt that Greg Matos, PsyD, is a very knowledgeable. It looks like he's like specializes in relationship therapy. So I have no doubt that he's very confident. But a lot of this stuff is opinion. So for example, this is why it's important to read things critically. So 62% of users are men. So what is the source of this?
A sério? Eu se estiver a jogar este jogo consigo ouvir na boa.
So according to a new study, which then goes to
Mas se estiver a jogar
over
outros
here,
jogos,
so the source is
calhar não
actually
vai
just
dar.
another news article. I couldn't even get access to the primary study. The other interesting thing is that this source is from
mas está-se bem,
2015.
eu já paro.
So here we are
136, ok.
in 2022.
Ok, deixa-me só encontrar
citing
o
a statistic
site.
that says
Ah,
that
está ali.
62% of users are men. That this statistic is 7 years old. So do y'all think that's still valid?
No mundo da internet não é
And
válido.
like, I can't even find the actual article. Like, I can't find the actual source this comes from. This is a Time magazine article. This is not peer-reviewed research. Now, I'm not saying that the person's
Oof,
premise
if it's
isn't
not
correct,
peer-reviewed,
he
then
does
I
cite
don't
better
care.
research elsewhere.
Fuck that
My point is
research.
that we just need to be
Well.
critical of what we read, okay? So,
Am I
and
right,
this is where
Aleph?
competition in online dating is fierce, and lucky in-person chance encounters are rarer than ever. Many women are overwhelmed with how many options they have. So this is the kind of statement that I don't know if this is true. Right? So they cite this statistic, but where are they getting this idea? Right? So this is where, like, we've got to be a little bit careful, because oftentimes what happens is when you have an article like this, people will make statements like this that are very triggering. So if you're a woman reading this,
Could
and
be
you're
triggering,
like,
could
I'm
be
not
triggering.
overwhelmed with how many options I have, that's not my problem at all. This person has no idea what they're
Se eu
talking
meter
about.
pause,
And
eles
if you're a
matam-me
dude,
ainda.
you're like, yeah, damn right. Like, I can't
Não,
get a
não
single
matam.
match. And all these women on dating apps have like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of matches, and they must be overwhelmed. Oh, are you? What's wrong? Like, you're so overwhelmed with the thousands of matches.
Sim, vocês não querem. Tenho medo de ver isto. Vamos ver pessoas a abrir câmaras.
Here's a potentially a very nice camera, Retina
What is this, man?
2S.
Isto é um gajo australiano.
Retina 3S camera.
Oi!
It doesn't have an interchangeable lens. It has a 45mm f2.8 Xenar lens. But apart from that, it's very similar to a 3S camera.
I'm really feeling it.
So this one, what's its problem? Well, the shutter's the problem, or the main problem. Basically, it doesn't go.
Ah, já está a funcionar.
You can see right through there, the shutter's jammed open at the moment.
Oi, boy!
If I play with it enough, I can
Sorry.
probably get it to close, but it certainly doesn't function correctly.
Sabes que eu não vou prestar atenção a nada.
Shutter certainly needs to be
Mas a voz dele faz-me
serviced,
rir, portanto,
otherwise this is
está
going
fixe.
nowhere. What other problems can we see here?
Crocodile Dundee.
Exposure meter, which may or
He's
may
dead.
not be reasonably accurate.
Now I'm sad, bro.
The ASA dial on the top here, it's probably difficult to tell on the camera, but
You made me sad, Aleph.
translucent rather than transparent. Someone's cleaned that with solvent.
É tudo igual, meu. É tudo, tudo que é do mesmo continente, é tudo Austrália, meu.
Most likely it's going to be easier to replace that than it is to try
São
and
todos
polish
iguais,
it
meu.
out. If I had no
Era metê-los numa
replacement,
ilha.
I'd polish it with some perspex polish. It's a tedious process because you can usually bring them back
Save.
transparent if you do that. Anything
Então,
else
amor,
to
pensei que ele tinha morrido.
note? Not particularly. The camera appears to be in quite
Ele não tinha sido
good
morto por
condition.
um crocodile.
There's ice bumps on the leatherette there at the catch end. Otherwise, the back is very good and smooth. The leatherettes have to come off the front, of course, for servicing.
Então que notícia é que eu vi? Em vários sítios.
Yes, because
O que é que era? O que é que eu vi? Diz-me. O que é que eu confundi?
No, it's a tidy example. I expect this one. Geez, I've said this a few times. I expect this one to go smoothly. Or at least I hope. So, to take the camera apart. something through the fork of the rewind, spin the knob off. Easy. I'll sort the
Que eu vi?
parts out into
Não
a
sabes?
file to go through the ultrasonic cleaner. And parts that will
Estou
not.
lixado contigo. Contigo não há dados. É só câmaras.
That rewind knob, as soon as I
Crocodile Dundee a montar uma câmara.
Fortunately, everything is tidy at the moment, so that means everything's in a huge heap.
Oh mano, mete um crocodilo na boca, meu.
Later, everything will
Não,
be spread
mete-te a
over
ti
the
na
bed
boca do
top
crocodilo. Anda lá, meu.
in the manner that I like.
Larga a câmara. Oi.
Right, 2 screws at
Eu não sei o que é que eles dizem. O que é que eles
the
dizem?
rewind in, unplated of course. There's no repair sticker in the back of this camera, so
No repair sticker. What the fuck?
never have been serviced
He's zooming.
my entire life for all I know.
What the dog doing? What the dog doing?
Cover off. And you can see here exactly how bad that plastic disc is.
Para quieto. Quero matar o curandeiro.
Inside. Right, so the button can come off. And the spring under the button is pretty easily locked, being quite small. And you've got to be careful not to lose that. The shutter release button can come off.
Isto no comando.
Let's start down here, take that.
Espera aí, onde é que
strap leg
estão?
off.
Está aqui. Não?
Bit gooey. Bit of sand. Seeing a bit of sand
Ai,
down
mãezinha.
here, so it's been to the beach. Or the back of the camera.
The beak?
Yeah, have a look at all this sand in here. That's
Mas já aprendeste a,
Well,
já aprendeste a arranjar câmaras? Por acaso eu tenho ideia de.
the range
Realmente as
finds
pessoas
off.
gostam de ver coisas assim.
I don't think the
As pessoas são
sand
estranhas.
is
Eu só gosto de ver coisas
the
informativas.
problem. It's much more likely just to be
Cenas assim, tipo,
the usual
sei lá, pessoas a cozinhar ou a
shutters,
comer, ou
shutters.
pessoas a arranjar câmaras,
Everything is stuck with oil. The rewind
pessoas a passear no
shaft
rio.
can come off.
Oh. Eu não sei.
Some of these screws are a bit reluctant to come out.
Já posso matar o cão.
Okay,
What the dog doing?
well,
Então usa isto como se fosse um tutorial, não? Eu geralmente só vejo vídeos assim quando preciso, não é?
disconnect that meter, I think,
Ah, Togo, hoje abri o pau.
because I'm going to be putting it back anyway.
Tenho que fazer manutenção do pau, não é? Cada câmara é diferente. Só crias problemas, é esse o teu problema, Aleph. É óbvio que vais ver vídeos de uma câmara que tu tenhas, não é? Mas não, mas só queres criar problemas, não é? Sorry, estou a ser confrontational. Estou a ser confrontational e não devia. I'm sorry, Aleph.
Spring to one side, film release button there, shutter release shaft can come out. It's quite long on this camera, as you can see.
Ui, vem aí o Minotaurio.
Not regard.
Parafuso. Os parafusos.
Shutter cocking rack.
O meu pau é como. Olha, o meu pau está exatamente como eu. Estava a guinar para a esquerda e os parafusos saltaram todos. Está exatamente. Estás a ver? Tal dono, tal pau.
On the shutter cocking rack for Retina 2S. And yes, it is the same as for Retina 3C.
Eu vou ter que ir a uma loja encontrar. Porque eu só encontrei 3 parafusos. Vou ter que, eu depois apertei aquilo direitinho e tal. Só há um problema. Faltava um parafuso. Lá está, tal como eu. Anyway. Por isso eu vou ter que ir a uma loja comprar parafusos. Oi? Uma parafuso. Tenho, sabes porquê? Porque se aquilo ficar assim com 3, ele mecanicamente ficou altamente, não é? Tipo, já está super tight e fixe. Mas tem que. Mas não acho que possa ficar assim. Tem que arranjar parafusos
They have a whole fleet of
para ficar os 4, que só ficaram 3.
the only practical thing to do with these, if they haven't been serviced,
Porque ele assim convida a que aconteça outra vez.
is to strip them entirely down so that you are not attempting to
Uma pafaruso. Não conheço a piada, I'm sorry, tens que explicar.
foundation sand. Yeah,
Emotional
that's
damage!
when you're working on a camera.
There is no joke.
they know the service
Ah, the no joke joke. The no mix-up mix-up.
comparatively recent times to a
Is this true?
And that's something that I do have to deal with from time to time. Because, unfortunately,
He wouldn't do another hell sweep, right? Is that the point? He wouldn't, right? Olef, tens que jogar Tekken 7, meu. Agora é que o jogo está bom. Pergunta ao Toga, ele vai dizer que o jogo está bom. Tens de ser main de Fakumrama agora. You wouldn't download a car again, right?
And can be dealt with in that fashion.
What the fuck is this guy talking about, dude? What is this, bruh?
Not the case. I just dealt with a Retina 2.
Ele vir a dizer como é que se mama uma Jägermeister sem morrer. Isso é que ele devia estar a ensinar, meu. Isso é que são coisas úteis.
And the owner told me that he thought he'd sent it to me
Oh.
6 or 7 years ago. He thought it was.
Man.
When I went through my records, I discovered that actually it was been 13 years
Com licença, preciso de shield.
since he'd sent me the camera. And I was astonished actually. The
False.
camera was in very nice.
Eu acho que o jogo foi. Como eu morri, o jogo foi todo com o
The
caralho.
exception that the shutter needed to be serviced as it had been sitting around for that long and it needed to be serviced again. But the camera itself had spent all of those years in a
Tinha acabado de fazer save.
And,
By the way, eu não tenho que matar os gajos todos, mas quero porque tem um loot qualquer que me interessa. Onde é que está?
Very smoothly. See if I can get this leatherette off here.
Foi quando morri, meu. Ou seja, está relacionado com o jogo. Hey, where's my stuff? O jogo deu Bugemon?
The adhesive is stuck more firmly to the
Aquele jogo também é o Dark Souls, também tens que ir buscar a tua stuff quando morres.
grass trim around the edges.
O que é que este jogo não é? Am I right, Toga?
The Retina 2S, you don't see many of them about. They're quite
bocadinho
thin
de
on the
tudo.
ground.
A pinch of
It's,
salt
a shame.
and everything
It's
nice.
a nice camera
Sugar and
to
spice.
use. I find them very convenient to hold. They're a
Convenient.
smaller camera than
Vai buscar o crocodilo, pá.
the Retina 3S. The body casting is basically
Vocês estão a aprender alguma coisa com
the
este
same
vídeo?
as that used for the Retina X.
Sorry, estou obcecado com aprender coisas.
And the Retina 3S, 3C type cameras basically had the same design of casting too. The advantage of the Retina X and indeed this Retina 2S is that
Dano emocional!
you've got more room to wrap your fingers around the body of the camera than you do with a folder. Okay, let's have a look at this. That's quite good. There's a bit of corrosion product on here, not much. That should all scrape off and that all looks relatively clean. So I'm quite pleased with the state of that. And I think that'll do now while I change this video camera battery. suppose.
Fala para o microfone, pá, não soube nada.
From the base plate.
Olha, o que é que achas de ver streams da velha que joga Skyrim? Já agora. Nunca vi. Já que estamos a ver streams de velhos.
Chrome base plate here is bowed up. That's very common. It's probably the result of being thumped down on the ground too many times.
Sim ou não?
It's very common to have a bow in them like that. You can
Já que é
see
para não
where
aprender nada e não.
it can be
Já que é para perder tempo. Sorry.
without any problem at all. Don't be concerned about that. Right, let's remove that lock lever.
Uou!
Remove
Viste
the
aquilo?
release lever.
O jogo do ganda Bugemon.
Spring from that because easily lost during
Easily
little
lost.
damage.
Do I have a way?
This one's not playing the game.
És tu, és tu.
Wriggle that off carefully, put that to one side.
Is there a way?
The tripod socket on any of the retinas often, this one's very loose. That just slops around. That's extremely common.
Ups.
Part of that would be down to the fact that fasteners just tend to come loose over time.
E vocês o que é que fizeram hoje?
Things like
Sem ser arranjar câmaras, claro. Que isso já sei que já sei que fizeram, não é?
but a few also
Ah, tu foste à FNAC, não é? E o Toga foi à empresa.
there, that's where the tip of the screw
Trabalhaste que nem Mouro, mas tu és um Mouro.
was screwed right and hard and basically instead
Não
of
consegues fazer nada de outra maneira que nem um Mouro, sim.
the camera drawing down tight on the head of the tripod, the screw was too long and it just drove up inside there. So in an effort to try and tighten things up, it would have been screwed harder and harder and basically stressed those three screws.
Mas os clientes eram todos normais ou
Become loose. Right, well I need a pair of pliers.
ou deram emotional damage? Como assim, jonques? Toda a gente sabe que vocês são todos meus. O que é que eu posso dizer? Apanhei um velho que cheirava tão mal, mas tão mal da boca. E estava a falar contigo, não é? Tipo, mesmo perto, do género. No meu tempo, sabe, menino? Vendia-se livros. Olha, você, diga-me uma coisa, você tem este livro?
Rocket shaft. Here's the guide bush
Oi?
top of the film advance.
Ó jovem, vocês não conhecem nada disto. Vocês hoje em dia não conhecem nada disto. Eu vou-lhe contar, eu vou-lhe dizer como é que era. Que se calhar assim você aprende. Você aprende e até ensina aos seus superiores e se calhar você fica superior aqui. Olha, eu vou-lhe melhorar a vida. Vou-lhe contar
From the
uma história de quando eu era jovem. Tinha a sua idade mais ou menos.
hatch.
Já era casado, já tinha filhos, já tinha 3 carros e 2 casas. Eu não sei como é que você está hoje em dia, mas só para avisar. Portanto, eu virei para a minha segunda mulher e disse: estou a brincar. Os caras dos velhos andam lá sempre a falar sobre as merdas das tropas.
Film advance shaft in
Eu estava a ver
position.
um vídeo sobre. Falar em tropas. Eu estava a ver um vídeo sobre a economia russa. Acho que aquilo está bem na merda. Também, quando ficas isolado economicamente do resto do mundo durante uns meses, provavelmente não ficas na melhor. Na tua melhor forma, digo eu.
One reason or another. Let's go.
Digo eu. Mas acho que a cena do vídeo era mesmo. By the way, a Rússia está a dizer que está tudo bem. Do género, como é que é? O Rubi ou o caralho. Está forte para caralho. Tipo, potente. Incrível. Mas pessoal, aquilo é tudo só inflação, ok? Que eles inventaram. Aquilo é tudo fake. Oi? Olha, vou morrer outra vez.
push it.
É o anel de rubi, não é? Exato. Olha, mano, bué forte. Só para avisar, chaval. Aquilo não levou emotional damage, ok? Ui, foi para trás do escudo? Ei, morri outra vez.
Leatherettes in front of the camera. Let's see if they'll come off nicely.
E o pessoal estava tipo, mas olhem, a China está a dar tag team com a Rússia.
Coming away from the aluminium.
Mas na verdade o que parece que está a acontecer é tipo, a China está de género. Bem, uma vez que eles estão a vender, estão-nos a vender gasóleo tipo 1000 vezes mais barato que nos outros sítios, vamos comprar aqui. How is my inventory full? Metam dinheiro na Putin Coin. Invistam na Putin Coin. O novo BitConnect. Imaginar o Putin tipo, hey, 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 what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up?
Working back
BitConnect!
casting here.
Review Connect!
A rounded edge like that tends to be stuck down particularly well.
Sorry.
That's hard to get.
Carrega no botão e vai orar para o mundo com o
Get it
caralho.
free.
Jesus. Olha, não é por nada, mas eles daqui a bocado não têm maneira de sequer de usar. Não tem sequer maneira de mandar bombas nucleares, não tarda.
It's stuck
Oi?
very unevenly. Some of it.
Pelo que eu percebi, eles já estão.
Some of it
As indústrias lá internas já estão a canibalizar-se umas às outras para poderem continuar a existir.
It's in good condition.
Acho que a indústria dos aviões ou caralho, aquele
Nice on the other side.
já está abaixo das normas de segurança.
See if I
Just
can
saying.
work in from the end here.
Os aviões não tarda já não conseguem sequer levantar voo. Military Industrial Complex. Também já estão desesperados a recrutar
Right.
any guy para ir para a tropa. Agora tu, ao que parece, eles pagam-te montes, balúrdios para tu ir para lá. És treinado durante um mês. Sim, ouviste bem, um mês. E depois vais lá matar ucranianos. Com o teu knowledge de um mês.
Yeah, that's off too. Now, front plates
No entanto, eles estão a ficar sem dinheiro para pagar as pessoas.
Kodak label, so I need to get that off. Typically, you want to use acetone. To
It's pretty
break up
cool.
that adhesive.
It's pretty fun.
And I usually just poke at it with
Wearing
the,
loom.
get the acetone working around the edge and then poke at it with a toothpick to get it to come loose. When working with acetone around the camera like this, you want to be careful to see that it goes exactly
I have
where
a
you want it to go
big
and
question.
nowhere else.
Why don't I move
Because
this technology?
It's very good at eating things.
Technology.
Like leatherettes,
Technology.
things like plastics.
Está leve, meu. São com merdas. Que o bocado vai falar do metal. Vai dizer que a Rússia tem um Metal Gear.
There's often a bit
Estávamos
of
todos fodidos
flex
aí.
in the label because it's not exactly dead flat. So if you work at it and push it up and down, you'll often find that you're able to work the acetone under the
Yeah,
edge
preciso-
further and further
Eu preciso da ajuda deste gajo,
until
meu.
such stage that it just pops off.
A receita do Metal Gear.
You need to be patient
E o
with
Toga,
it,
como assim? Estão a falar de
because
Metal Gears?
if you make a mess of that
De
label,
repente fiquei interessado.
it's going to be exceptionally obvious, and you're probably not going to find a spare to replace it. It's not uncommon to find cameras with a little
Tanque
piece
chamado
of
The Xar
leatherette
Tank.
filling that
Oh,
space
God.
because someone made a mess
Sounds
of
great.
the label getting it off. Or, I suppose, in cases where the label simply had fallen off because the adhesive had given up naturally.
How do you make a battery?
Well, I'll continue to work at this for 5 minutes until I can get
For
that
5
label to come
minutes?
off.
This
Well,
guy's
I've got it
fucking
loose
useless.
now, but I'm just going to
This
see if I
Sentinel
can-
flare. Why do I have this?
get that to rattle completely free. It doesn't want to.
Ferreters.
So I'm just running my scalpel blade down the gap down the side of that. I'm not trying to get my scalpel
tank.
underneath it. I'm just
Jesus Christ.
effectively just shifted it
I don't want an
sideways.
hydraulic wiring for anything. Like, fuck you,
I'll
man.
try another
Fuck you,
drop of
me.
acetone.
Radiation protection falling.
Avoid the temptation to dig down under one end to try and flip that up. It's quite commonly done. People use a very sharp pin or something else to do that. The mark is
Fuck this
always
shit.
exceptionally
Defense
obvious
shit, that's the
afterwards.
name.
You will
That's why
always
it's
see
funny.
it.
How do you make this? Ion battery. Cobalt. I need 2. And I need some metal platings. Is it metal
This one's
plating?
being unusually stubborn.
5 metal platings.
It may mean that something different was used.
Nunca foi usado.
to get
Clássico.
down. Oh, it's definitely moving.
I need more ion
I can
bataras.
move that. I'll zoom in a bit. You probably see that. See, it's moving from side to side.
Side to
It's definitely
side.
loose. It's not popping free.
Destruiu o chão todo.
Drop of acetone on there.
It's time. AI autopilot critically damaged. Critically damaged. Ei, o meu Blaze Javelin está todo fodido. Não, na verdade não está fodido.
Oh, it's definitely
Eu
loose.
devia ter usado o Blaze Javelin.
Will it lift there?
I don't have wiring looms, which is not good for me. Oh,
Well, it'll move from
no
side
bueno.
to side, but doesn't want to come free. So it means that the adhesive underneath there is
ficou
rubber.
preso em piso mole e nunca mais conseguiram tirar.
It's not a brittle adhesive. And so it's
Depois foi
stuck
desmantelado.
here, but it's-
Agora tem que desmantelar, sabes porquê? Porque eles não têm basic resources, tipo metal. Acho que também há reportes de cadeias de fast food já, de tipo com chamadas, não é chamadas, mas com batatas fritas no logo, nem sequer servem batatas fritas para esta altura. That's fucked up,
that
bro.
is weird. I'm going to try a different solvent.
That's actually fucked up. Man, estive a construir o Minotauro e ele não me vai ajudar, man. 60 toneladas? Quanto é que pesa um carro? Será tipo 2 toneladas ou assim? Por exemplo, o meu. Tinha que ir buscar o livrinho. Tenho que ir lá abaixo ao carro. Pois, o meu deve ser para aí duas e qualquer coisa toneladas. Dano emocional. Projectile ammunition. Ammunition. Filho de uma vesga quadrada. É mesmo preciso usar weapons alternativas. É um brutalhaço de um estouro, ou Blaze Javelin. Que é uma coisa que eu não quero usar. Não me apetece. Mas vou usar. Pá, estou num dia em que não me apetece, meu. Pá, são mariquices minhas, pronto. Toga, queres meter um vídeo de... Não faço a mínima o que é que tu querias ver. Ui, estou a ficar sem balas. Eu quero dormir. Ah pá, então dorme. Quase que parece que eu te estou a impedir. Seis ou 7 partes. You're fucking insane. That's all I'm gonna say. What's next? Vídeos de pretas a comerem hot dogs gigantes. Because those exist. Uma vez vi uma a pegar numa lagosta e a espetá-la na boca, meu, a comer aquela merda. Mesmo a animal. E é esses os vídeos que as pessoas gostam de ver no YouTube. Fuck. That's it, that's the whole video. Eu não percebo este fenómeno, mas é um fenómeno muito grande. Toda a gente vê essa merda. Diz ao gajo que tipo, pode simplesmente fazer um vídeo grande. Fucking velhos, meu. Ok, tem que ser Blaze Javelin. Falhei. Falhei. Este palhacini tem que falecer. E então? Mais valia um vídeo para aí de 3 horas. Era bem melhor. Não. Se eu tivesse um rato, tu vias, ó palhaço. Falhava na mesma. Isto não havia cá dinheiro para ter computadores. Espera aí, ó Minotauro. Ih! Fica quieto. Enquanto eu me curo. O Blaze Javelin é muito melhor para lidar com o Bingostário. Ah, Duncan! Falhei? Que grande falha. Uou! Se quiseres mandas é playlist, meu, que é para eu não ter que desligar e ligar. Não quero fazer micromanagement. Para micro já chega a minha pila. Oi? Cagando a tiro de shotgun, meu, just saying. Anda, mano, fica stuck, meu. Qual é que era a palavra? Frame stuck? Não. Havia uma palavra para isto. Sai da frente. Estou a entrar em loop. Não sei, qualquer coisa. Tinha um termo oficial.
Sentinel walker detected.
Filhos de pute. Amanhã já é sexta-feira, não é? Foda-se, para mim passou rápido, uma vez que estava de férias. Rápido é in. Foda-se, já bem, meu. Preciso descansar mais. Devia ter sido 2 semanas de férias. Para ser perfectly honesto. Give myself real discansating times. E olha aí. Foda-se, que grande bazuca raios laser que o gajo está a mandar, meu. E a Blaze Javelin, tipo, nem se compara. O cão não fica preso? Puta do cão. Eu acho que não fica preso é porque não lhe estou a acertar. Exatamente. Será que esta hitbox não é lá muito boa? Ui, vem aí o curandeiro, filha da puta. Tem 2. Isto é one shot, one shot. Emotional damage. E olha aí, merda das bazuca raios laser, meu. Barruga. One shot e cura-me. Those guys are cool. Because of that. Olha o curandeiro. Fuck. Curandeiro da pizza. Anda cá. É de mim, esta hitbox não funciona bem contra este gajo. Mas é que é mesmo isso, mano. Ai que eu preciso disto, ai que eu preciso disto. Espera aí que eu estou a tentar. Estou a levar com raios de laser e a morrer. Emotional damage. Oh fuck. Não, curandeiro não. Não fodas o juiz, menino. Tem que ser Boltcaster para este gajo. É que parece que a hitbox da outra weapon não lhe acerta. Quando acerta, altamente. O problema é que nunca acerta. Olha, isto pode ser, tipo, ser mais do que só buracos, ou... Não consigo andar sem cair num buraco. Tinha que vir, tinha que vir. Ao menos este gajo consigo acertar. O problema é o com. Oh. I'm recovering. I'm a recovering drug addict. Para de olhar para mim, senão não sei onde é que está a tua... Yeah, se passares muito tempo sem levar pancadaria, o shield começa a regenerar. Oh. Finalement, como dizem os franceses. Oh, e este gajo falece? Exatamente. Era isto que eu queria. Walker Brain. E vocês? Mas era isto que era suposto fazer? Eu, nope. Nope. Not really. Not really. Eu é que queria andar à pancada. That's it. De pot container. Tenho que usar o power.com para ver séries e não sei o que. Devia fazer isso amanhã. O que é que acham? Sou um pancadeiro cheio de pancas. Onde é que está? Está aqui. Não? Está não. Com licença. Achas mesmo, meu? Ninguém me quer ouvir a tocar guitarra, meu. Emotional damage.
try some of this CRC Electra clean. We'll see if that does the job.
Este gajo é um ganda maluco, meu, a mandar-me isto. Chris Sherlock. Que é ganda malaico, meu.
It's definitely loose in there, it just does not want to
Tu és um
lift out of
malaico,
that
sabias?
recess. Well, you can see that solvent working, being sucked down into there.
Não estragues o símbolo da Kodak, pá.
Oh, there we go. I saw that flip up, that's ready to come out. There we go. Got it off. In an undamaged state. So that's good, that's the target, that's what we needed to
Fogo.
achieve.
O YouTube é incrível para aprender a fazer anything,
So the front of the camera,
não é?
we've got
Fogo.
4 screws.
Que
holding the
ferramenta
front of the
maravilhosa, não acham? Eu acho.
camera. One here.
Se vocês não
down that
apreciam,
hole.
deviam apreciar.
And that's quite reluctant to move. That's this post and 3 countersunk head screws. And the front should lift off, and it does. There we have it.
Mas tu consegues
So,
aprender a fazer
there's
isto?
that camera body. You can see the meter cord here. There's the cocking shaft.
O que é que achas disso para o futuro, Aleph? Seres um engenhocas. Ah, a minha, sei lá, o meu candeeiro estragou-se e tu, não se preocupe, minha senhora. Minha senhora, não se preocupe, eu sei como é que funciona tudo.
Cord
Let's
goes
go.
here. Is it that way? Yeah, something like that.
Merda,
I'll show
devia
you
ter
how to
vendido
put that
isto.
together once we get to that stage. Right, I'll pop that body apart away for a second. I just want to
E preciso de um caralhão de wiring looms. Um leigo como tu.
And it's just gummed up.
More
You can
like
see those
um
shutter
meigo
blades
como tu.
there, it's got gummed up.
Ouviste bem? Eu disse meigo.
The diaphragm, what's that like? It's just sticky too by the looks of it. Not as bad. The shutter blade's the main problem.
Manso? Não, eu disse meigo.
Right. Well, I'll
Manso,
just finish
acho que tem
taking the
conotação
body apart.
negativa.
These loose pieces I'll want to get into the ultrasonic cleaner. Get rid of some nasty stuff like this.
Tanta coisa para
Bit dry,
vender, oh
grease on the top
maninho.
plate here, stuff like that. There's not much of it. This is comparatively clean. A bit of sand about in here.
Isto vai dar
Certainly set
muita
down in here.
guitalhada.
No film chips. That makes a change. So all this needs to be cleaned. Let me remove the meter cord.
Muita guitalina Andrioleta.
Lose them. I'll put that over there. That's the tensioning spring for our meter cord. Right, so the rangefinder coupling arm is here. Now I'll remove that from its pivot. The pivot pin at the top is a screw with a very fine extended shaft on it at the end. It's got a washer underneath it and that runs into a hole in this arm here.
Nice, o próximo HUD ia ser uma coisa mais...
Little hole right in the top, so it pivots on that. And likewise,
Oh, fuck
there's
off,
one
não
at
é?
the bottom, much the same. It's very fine.
Cada rolo é uma coisa diferente.
What is
Cada
that?
attempt,
It
ou
looks
seja,
like
um mau attempt fez com que a coisa não aparecesse.
this bracket at the base.
A coisa que eu queria.
Oh, we might as well have that out. Only 2 screws.
Anyway, o que eu quero mesmo é vender estas tretas para ter naninhos nanolas.
Right.
Para poder
Here's
fazer
that
espaço
bracket.
para ter a minha squad
And there's
de
the post.
piloteiros
That very
ser maior.
fine pin that these rangefinder arm moves on. This baffle can come out now. and
Vender
likewise
naninhos
that
nanolas é
baffle.
muito bom. Também é para isso e é para
And our body card
upgrades à nave,
is stripped down
que é mesmo
as
muito
far
caro.
as we need to go, I think. I don't think I'm going to remove the leather
Tipo subir a
from the
classe
back.
da nave.
We'll take that as good. This baffle is just plastic. It's quite vulnerable to solvent. Make sure you keep that well away.
Vou ter que vender coisas.
Acetone or other stuff. And this is a metal baffle. It's quite important that that's present in there too. Otherwise you end up from
Mas Olef, já
you
viste
end
isto
up
tudo?
with these-
Este...
a bright spot in your
Esta
image,
playlist desta
presumably
câmara?
from scattered reflected light. Okay, so these pieces, they can all go into the ultrasonic cleaner now. Even that washer, I think. This piece, I don't think that needs to go
Bem,
through the
então nós
cleaner.
às 4 da manhã ainda estamos aqui a ver isto,
These
certo?
pieces certainly do. So I'll get those into the ultrasonic cleaner and come back, start sorting out the body. Clean up the
1886?
top cover.
Holy
I've got to
shit!
replace that.
Vocês estão a ver para que é que eu morri, não estão? Foi para isto que eu morri.
I may use that to show
Foi para
you
farmar
how
essas
well that
merdas.
can clean up with some,
3500 naninhos nanolas?
Perspex polish, but I'm going to replace it anyway. But meanwhile,
É para dar
this
improve
is
à
the
multitool.
ultrasonic cleaner. This stray adhesive I've got here is coming
Jesus
off well
Christ.
with this CRC heavy duty electric.
Eu vou vender. Provavelmente o upgrade era muito bom e não sei o que é, mas...
I'll just use that to remove this excess adhesive,
It's time to sell.
just so that I've got nice clean metal.
Time to
put
tip the
leather edge
scales.
back on.
Espera. Do I have the
And I would
wiring
presume that's
loom?
the same adhesive that was used to put that little Kodak nameplate in place.
Uma retina não sei o que, esta é uma
Just
retina
with
não sei
gooey.
quatro.
With the acetone,
Se tem o mesmo nome, quer dizer
wouldn't
que a
let it
base
go.
é toda igual, aposto. Abrir uma deve ser igual a abrir a outra.
Right, I'll work through getting this
Com uma slight
casting
difference.
clean. I'd like the body to be nice and tidy.
Nice
ready
and
for the
tidy.
reassembly process.
Anyway,
Well, it's about 10 minutes later. I've got that body clean to my satisfaction now. All the lumps and bumps of adhesive are gone.
the lumps
All
and
the
bumps.
grease and sand and rubbish is gone. The body now is basically ready for the reassembly process, so I'm done with that until I get my other parts back from the ultrasonic cleaner. And of course I've got to look at some of these other components with a view to cleaning them up as well, and I might as well start here. Here I've just got one of my rubber friction tools, which is a good fit for inside that plastic window,
Tem que ser semelhantes.
and I'm using that to support the plastic
A ideia,
window
aliás, de
because
fazer
they can be a
uma
bit
câmara
fragile.
depois da
So I'm
outra
just
com modelos
taking
parecidos,
some
acho que é mesmo dar
Perspex
upgrade, não é?
polish,
Com
and I'm
o...
going to have a go
Mas aproveitando,
polishing this
sei lá,
window.
o corpo.
I probably need to do
No.
the inside and the outside, but you can probably hear from
Etc,
the
etc.
sound of that,
Fundamentalmente ser a
it's
mesma
quite
câmara,
sort
mas
of a
com
rough sound.
se calhar uma melhor lente ou melhor
That's because the surface
shit.
is not smooth,
um,
and the more
Deixa-me
I
ir para a
polish
bazinga.
that down, the quieter it
Bazinga!
as the surface polishes down.
Constantinopla,
This process
Zimbábue.
takes a considerable amount of time and patience in
Isto é um
order to
meme
get
que um
done.
sociólogo iria gostar. Socialista não faço ideia, mas um sociólogo sim.
Absolutely essential where you've got a plastic
Acho que os socialistas só gostam de ser
window
multibilionários e
which
dizerem
has
que não são.
been
Acho que é isso que um
damaged
socialista
like this
faz.
is by someone applying some solvent
Dizer, não, não, eu sou como
to clean
vocês, o povo.
it. And I can
Vamos
see
lutar
by
contra
the
o
pattern
rico.
that it's
Que não sou
gone
eu,
in
by the
around
way.
the button and on the undersurface of that piece too, so it's just not the top surface I've got to deal with, it's the bottom surface as well. You could probably use an
Duas câmaras
attachment on a
totalmente
Dremel to
diferentes.
do this, but one of the things about
Why would
plastics
they do
is
that to
they
themselves?
Don't like heat.
Fucking
If you
idiots.
get them hot,
Se calhar por isso que a indústria das câmaras foi com o
softens and
caralho.
melts, and it'll go any way but what you want it, the way you'd like it to go.
Um falo que abre,
So I
a
will work
ISS
away
é
at this
fixa.
For 5 minutes or 10 minutes.
Isso não me
or
soa
so, I
totalmente
can see an
diferente.
improvement already.
Mas também não sou um
So
cameraman.
I've got that top surface visibly improved, and then I'll be in a better space to view the
Fazem-se
underside
câmaras
surface
digitais.
and see what state that's in. So back shortly. Well, I'd like to say that that plastic was perfect now. It isn't. But as you can see,
Realmente sou uma necessidade, não conheço
it's
ninguém
a
que não
vast
tenha uma câmera.
improvement.
I'm joking, estou só a brincar. Dizendo verdades, mas estou a brincar.
And to the casual
Uma delas é a Leica.
glance,
Uma Leica nova são quase 0 pessoas no mundo inteiro que compram. Ok, já percebi.
I happen to know that if I look at it in a raking light, I can see the imperfections in that surface. Now, they're not the sharp imperfections that they were before, creating all that haze. They're more, ups and downs, I'd say. Lumps and bumps.
Lumps and
Hollows and
bumps.
hills in the plastic.
What
very
is it
likely.
talking about?
They won't want to polish right down. You'd be polishing down to the valleys in order to see the back of that. I think you'd be there a long time, and I think it'd be quite hard to get an absolutely even
Quite hard.
flat surface there. But the main
Tem uma câmera bem
problem with the
bacana
haze,
que se for mint condition service do...
that window's
Sim, mas
wide
a Catarina tem
and
duas coisas.
unless you knew to look for it,
Disposable
you wouldn't think
income
that there was a
e
problem there at all.
hobby. Mas nem toda a gente tem
It's
hobby de
taken me about
câmaras.
20 minutes to get to
Diria
that
até muito
stage.
pouca gente tem hobby de câmaras.
Now that plastic disc fits in a recess here, and the edges have been crimped over.
E disposable income.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 8 or 9 places. 8 places, I'd say, at a guess. And so all of those little crimps have got to be pushed back out. The new plastic disc inserted, and then crimped back over again. It's a bit awkward.
I have some money, bro.
It doesn't want to move back.
Até já, até já.
Brass just doesn't
Toda a
want
gente
to
tem
go back
disposable
where
income
it
se não
came
comeres.
from.
E se não comeres e mesmo assim não tiveres disposable income?
Push it out with the tip of a screwdriver. The plastic, generally when you're doing this, the plastic is already
O
gone,
Octavio responde, well, that's tough, bro.
which is why you're doing it. In this case, I'm doing it because the plastic's no good.
Vai trabalhar 5 head.
And you're probably wondering
Mas
what
e
it
se
is I'm going
trabalhares?
to replace them with. Well, it's not an original spare part.
What eighth?
It's a polycarbonate disc. I think it's 0.7 millimeters thickness that I had carefully.
Eu afinal tenho mesmo muitos wiring looms. Já viste?
And it's got a piece of plastic either side, so it's quite it's as ugly as
Onde é que está o
silicone.
meu Minotaurio?
Well, there's the new window in place, and you can see that that's
Eu posso chamar aqui o Minotaurio,
very
não posso?
clear and easy to see through. And being polycarbonate, it shouldn't be as prone to cracking as the original piece of plastic was, which was very likely some styrene, I would imagine. Okay, well, with everything cleaned and ready to go, I think I'll start putting some pieces back in the body. So, I think the order of the day is to start with the easy stuff.
Trabalha mais.
So,
Arranja
put the
um segundo
tripod
emprego.
socket back on place.
A construir a casa da toga. Ouvi dizer que dá.
Of course, if you're pulling one of these apart, you'll be taking great
Eu tenho
note
antimatters.
what screws came from which place. I don't, because I don't have good working practices. I just
Quem é que não
don't
tem
bother
good working practices?
Sort it out later.
Quem é? Quem é que
I've
não
done
tem?
that
Eu
so
vou,
long,
lhe
I
à,
know
eu vou lhe à boca.
everything goes. Right, get those 3 screws in and do them
Alright.
up tight. at the top
Meu
of the
colega.
camera, I think I want the rewind
True.
shaft in here
Porta-te bem, colega.
with its 2 screws. And put this in, I will want a
Mas a
white
cena é,
synthetic grease, I think, into the
mesmo que tenhas um bad working practice, não é esse o meu problema. Porquê? Porque podes dizer assim, olha, estás a ter um bad working practice agora mesmo. E a pessoa diz, oh fuck! Uma pessoa normal, certo? Oh
Yeah,
fuck!
unlike
Então como é que eu faço o good working
with the
practice?
3
Isto seria a conversa
Cs and
normal.
various other models.
O problema é
It's
que
a
nesta
single
situação é
piece
tipo,
that
olha, estás a
rewind.
ter um bad working
What that means
practice.
is that you
Não,
can't
não.
raise the knob
Works
up
on my machine.
higher
Isso sim é o
the camera
problema.
top in order to rewind the film. The rewinding has to be done with the rewind knob down against the camera top. And somebody's bound to ask, is it possible to add that feature to a 2S to make it a 2-piece one so that you can lift the knob up? Well, probably. I've certainly done it with a Retina 3S.
Eu nem sequer sei o que é que estava estragado nesta câmara.
It's exactly the same procedure. Take the parts you want from a suitable organ donor and put them in place. That's good. So, what do I want to put in next? Film advanced stuff, I think. So, a white of molybdenum paste through the holes in the bottom of the casting. We'll start with the bottom of the camera here. So a wipe of molybdenum paste there through the holes in the bottom of the casting where the lock lever and release lever run. And that toothpick has just died, so we'll start with a fresh one. Let's find the parts I want, which is the lock lever first, I think. And I'll get out the release lever while I'm here. And the lock lever, for that we need the spring.
Gold nugget.
There are
Isto é
two
quase uma
springs
asneira.
that look very much the same.
If you know what I mean.
The shorter one here
Mais
and
cenas
the
para
finer
vender.
wire.
Acho que não vai
for
valer um
the lock
caralho.
lever. Put the lock lever in the casting at the bottom, all the way through to the top. Fit the chosen spring in place, and holding that down with my thumb, I can pick up the clip.
Ah, falta os supercomputers. Mas eu tenho ideia que guardei aqui montes de supercomputers.
Fit that in place in the groove. Whoops, don't drop
Está
it.
aqui.
Like that.
Que horas são?
Clip it into place.
Fogo. Eu pensava que já era meia-noite, já podia dormir, mas ainda falta.
So that's now nicely sprung low. Turn my attention to the release lever. Now the release lever has a small spring on the
Alright,
base
the AI pilot is working
which
now.
acts to keep it in contact with the cam
With the what
on the
now?
bottom of the film advance shaft. And the spring is slightly distorted, I can see, and I'm sure it doesn't have anything to do with the way I've wrestled it off the lever.
Lever. It's lever. I'm joking.
Setting as I want it. I better get this back on the lever. Of course you won't be able to see any of this probably because I still haven't got the see-through fingers.
Pingas?
There it is. That's sitting in position.
Eu tenho uma teoria. O Pingas foi outro meme inventado pelo Aleph.
Get that lined up with the hole in the casting at the top. Make sure that spring doesn't get trapped in there and get damaged. And I put the busy trying its best to get damage.
O dia a dia do Aleph é
My finger from underneath.
ir a redes sociais tentar começar memes. Tenho a certeza absoluta.
Put the spring on the top. Find the screw.
E como é que é, filhote? Tudo bem, chaval? Está-se brabini?
Get that started.
Oi? Estou no mecha. Porquê é que achas que eu não paro de jogar este
Okay, I'll
jogo?
find those bits.
Porque posso andar num mecha.
Good sweeping the floor with the magnet did.
Que tem um upgrade para ter um AI para ser AI controlled.
But,
E com isso ele anda
after
atrás de
all,
mim,
I'm
fazer
curious.
coisas. Ain't that a thing?
The screw hit the magnet because it was a brass screw.
Não é Gundam. Olha, eu já ia ao meu settlement.
This is always entertaining. Today's being a bit worse
Is
than
it?
usual.
Lá se foi o interesse, não é?
Trying to get the screw started into the top of the shaft is awkward because
Blame
the shaft,
analyst
of
não
course,
sei o
is
que.
split. And it's a tight fit on the screw.
Talk shit, get hit.
So it's hard to get the screw started. There we go, that's started. I'll run that down till we have what I feel is sufficient tension on that spring.
Vou-te deixar de
Yeah,
seguir.
that's probably a good place to start. I'm going to have to get the adjustment for that correct later.
What? Olha, então aquele vídeo é sobre um gajo a arranjar câmaras.
Pieces I'd lost, I found
I don't know what to tell
two
you.
screws.
A coisa mais parecida que eu fiz com isto foi hoje abri o meu,
And one of them I
meu
recognised as
stick.
being lost from a camera I was working on.
It's
the
cool.
other day.
É mesmo fixe abrir
The other
coisas
one.
e ver como é que funciona, por acaso.
I've got no idea where that came from.
Com licença.
Probably dropped it there from my spares when I was sorting around looking for pieces. Okay, those pieces are in place, that's the main thing. And here we've got the
Yeah, é mesmo fixe.
film advance shaft. Want that, and that's the bush for the bottom of our film.
Fazia isso com tanto
take-up
quando eras puto.
spool,
Yeah, isso é fixe.
which is hiding.
Falar nisso, tenho que. Deixei a minha PSP com a Catarina. Mas na verdade, o que eu devia ter feito era.
To hold this in place.
Devíamos ter visto os dois aquilo. Era bem mais fixe, digo eu.
Right. This.
Agora que eu estou a pensar, não é suposto sermos amigos ou assim? Muito mais fixe fazer isso assim juntos.
This is what winds up and tensions it
Right?
so that the
Am I crazy?
lever returns to the rest position nicely.
Nicely?
Easily lubricate
I'm not
that
crazy, am I?
with some graphite grease. So I'm just pulling back the spring and put some over at the top of that. Pull that bush back up, roll it backwards and forwards a few times. I like this grease, it's quite tacky. It stays on the shaft. Doesn't just get pushed back out of the way.
Streamer
And,
discovered. Achas?
Stop doing its job. Right, now
Falar
I'll put
nisso.
it into the spring itself so that the coils of the spring move smoothly
Falar
over each
nisso.
other. Just check that that's...
Eu acho que o Roy Aru devia acontecer, meu. Não sei quando, mas devia. Mas ao almoço.
Now the ratchet
Porque ao almoço é
or
muito mais barato, ok?
ratchets on this little teeth here. I usually just use some synthetic grease on those. There are two ratchets. There's one that serves for the advanced stroke and one
am I
that
doing
serves
here?
for the return stroke. And the way the camera's engineered, you have
Kitamura.
to swing the advance through a full stroke.
Can't sell
You
stuff
can't
here.
inch it. And likewise, when you're
Should I go here
returning
and
the
sell? Well,
lever to the rest position, it has to be done in a single stroke. You can't swing it halfway
Não sabes se o
back
resto do
and then
pessoal
swing
poderia.
it
Estou a
forward.
cagar para o pessoal, meu.
Right,
A
so
cagar para o
push
pessoal. O pessoal que se foda,
in the
mano.
bottom
Olha,
of
sabes
the
uma cena?
take-up spool,
Podia ser quando o Watson chegasse. Não faço ideia.
camera.
Não faço ideia quando é que o Watson chega.
Now
Talvez
swing
daqui a
the
3
lock
meses ou
lever out
assim.
of the way. Drop this down into place in the
Aposto que ele
body.
já chegou e nem
Swing
disse
the
nada. Foi de género.
release lever
Ui, é melhor não dizer
back out
nada.
of the way.
Senão eles depois sabem que estou aqui, o caralho.
As it drops
Estás a ver? Tem um
nicely,
esquadrão classe A,
feels
ó Toga.
like it. I'm just checking.
Olha, posso ter mais um coleguinha.
It's sitting nicely on the take-up spool.
Pumbas, vou gastar estes neninhos nanáulas que andei a morrer por eles.
It doesn't line up correctly.
Mais um espaço. Agora, não sei se quero gastar já tudo.
Now this was under some extra tension, as I recall.
15 mil naninhos nanolas até dão para coisas fixes. Acho eu. Acho. Eu.
I'm going to see what it
Está de
feels
férias
like
com os pais?
just
Que desperdício de férias, meu fogo.
as I would normally
I'm joking. Não é verdade o que eu estou a
which is
dizer.
right
Estou a
there,
brincar.
so as to give
Brincar.
one full you give one
B-R-I-N-C-A-R.
full turn of tension on it typically is good. Now with the Retina 3S camera or the reflex cameras,
Soltei bem.
a full turn plus a third of a turn works well. So basically you're just moving, you're giving it a bit extra. And I suspect that this will work okay with one full turn. I'll get those 3 screws in place, tighten them up. That's the base of that done.
The Brief Commander.
At the top,
Ya.
I'll
Recebo
need
bué
to
das
be
cenas.
installing my
A pouco e pouco
clutch
estou a ficar
assembly
podre de
to
rico.
start, which means I need to lubricate and assemble the clutch assembly. And the clutch assembly consists of 3 pieces here,
Grão a grão,
and the clutch assembly
enche
I
a
will
galinha ou o papo.
lubricate with some graphite
Gran to
grease
gran, fills the chicken to the pape.
for much the same reason. It's quite
Se calhar em
tacky, it
setembro,
stays
porque
where
vou
it's hot.
ter semanas em que trabalho
It's a
de
good
noite.
lubricant. And the way
Ah,
it
mas eu
is
estava a dizer
constructed,
ir ao almoço, que é,
you get
é
a lot
muito
of
mais
spring
barato,
tension
mano.
from the outside face of this
E o sushi é
to
bué da
the
bom,
inside
meu.
face of this,
Na mesma.
and that needs to be controlled.
Em menos que eles ponham um cocó no
There's too
sushi
much
na
friction
hora do
there.
almoço.
That can start galling the metal. If there was no grease in there at all, it would start galling the metal up. It would start to rub and get rougher, and then you'd end up with far more friction than you started off with. I'm just going to get this
What does this
spring
mean?
in place. I use these crimp lug pliers to help me do that.
Freighter inventory full.
Just check that runs smoothly, and the clutch always moves smoother in one direction and then the other.
Ah, precisamente por isso. Ah, ok.
The smooth direction is the right direction, so you can't mess that up. Put that into place in the body. Rotate till it drops in on top of the film take-up spool.
I don't remember what I'm doing.
Now I'm just going to put this tripod surround underneath here to support the base of the film advance while I'm putting this together, so that I don't push the shaft
Gostava
down
muito de não
and
ter
end up
damage nestas
disengaging
chips.
stuff. Right. So this piece, I need to put some grease in here into that. Those
Puta
pins.
grease.
I'll just force some
Puta
in there,
grease.
because these parts have all been through the ultrasonic cleaner and they're pretty much devoid of any lubricant. Get this in position. That's good. It's held in with 2 screws. One of them is the support post
Damn.
at the back here, which also
Este gajo está
acts to
mesmo a
support the
comentar,
safe cocking rack.
Está mesmo a comentar tudo, meu. Puto da screws, puto da grease,
And the screw at
puta
the front
creme,
has the
puta creme, puta creme.
It prevents the film advance gear here being able to turn backwards. It never turns backwards. Let's put a smear of synthetic grease on the top
O gajo é
of
de
that,
facto um pro,
so that the ball can swivel
mas
freely.
tem um problema. Ele é um pro, mas ele não é um pro skater.
Run the screw down.
Tony Hawk 1,
Check that
this
that
random
ball's
old man
free to move,
0.
it used to be.
Sorry, Aleph.
We'll tighten those two screws up. Seems good. Right.
Isso é de
Very
swivel?
nice.
Yeah, ele é de um. Ele é de um continente diferente, meu. Ele é
Grease,
especial.
synthetic grease in the gear here. Just make sure some underneath the edge and some through the centre is typically all you need.
Nunca vi o Job? Não. Sounds
So take
terrible.
that into position. Oh, I should have put that
Não quero ser
spring on
hater,
that
desculpa.
ball
Ah,
first.
eu estou num dia de hate. Manage fleet. Let's manage this motherfucker.
It's easier to get this spring on
Isto podia dar bug. Ah, acho que deu.
before you put
Nice.
the gear in place, but there's not an awful
Assim é
lot
que eu
of it.
gosto. I gotta watch Jobby da
Take-
home.
to help me prod this into
Só há um
position.
problema. Só tenho um problema para ti. Isto é uma playlist de pai 10 vídeos de 30 minutos cada um deles. E agora estou committed, vou ter que ver todos. Isso é um grande problema.
That's it.
Epá, o meu exosuit não tem espaço, meu. Ai, epá, estou cheio da treta, man. Então o que é que eu disse?
This little spring I've put
Aleph, o
in
que é que eu
here.
disse? Eu não disse estou committed. Tens que ouvir as minhas palavras. Ouve-me. Eu quero ser ouvido e compreendido.
I usually give that a
Como qualquer outro
wipe
ser
with
humano.
grease
Tem esta necessidade.
just to make sure it's
Senão fico deprimido e triste. O que são duas coisas totalmente diferentes. Ok, uma da outra.
unlikely to suffer from corrosion. It's spring steel. Spring steel, any high carbon steel tends to be a little bit prone to corrosion. Yeah.
Se o Aleph disser que eu tenho.
Is there a
Se o Aleph
washer
disser
that
para eu
went on
ver, eu
top of
vejo.
that? What I have in mind that there was. Where is it? Here it is.
Tudo depende do Aleph. Que barulho é este? Ele está a estragar a câmara?
And the gear goes on top of that.
Oh velho, não estragues a câmara. Eu não te estou a pedir permissão, Aleph.
Having a casual glance at that gear to make sure that it's sound, that there are no damaged teeth. I'd be surprised if there were.
Eu não estou a pedir permissão.
But there certainly doesn't appear to be any problem with that. It's always worth
É
having a
diferente.
look.
O
You
que eu estou a
never
dizer é fazemos o que o Aleph mandar. É diferente.
know the history of the camera and that gear.
Percebes a nuance?
If you have one damaged tooth or even two,
Ora bem,
it's you can position it so that they never come in contact with the cocking rack. So
eu preciso vender
you
coisas,
can
portanto tenho
use
que ir à.
gear that's been damaged, as long as the damage is only confined to one spot. Well, that looks
Bota aí o
good.
vídeo do Gundam. Mas isso é um vídeo do Gundam?
Flip this over and get the rewind
O velho está a estragar a câmara,
button
meu.
back
Aleph.
in place.
Alguém avisa que ele tipo, já não tem idade para estas coisas e tipo, agora parte de tudo só.
Should have all the parts neatly separated.
Mas a família dele convenceu que ele ainda é útil para a sociedade. E então isto é uma maneira dele manter a sanidade, tipo, não, eu ainda sou útil. Mas na verdade só estraga as coisas porque está senil. I'm sorry, it's too funny. In my head. Eles vão lá com coisas para ele arranjar, mas sabem que ele vai partir só.
So normally
Ele, obrigado, avô.
I lubricate
Arranjaste mesmo a minha PlayStation.
with a wipe of molybdenum paste. I'll do that.
Ah, velhice. Anyway. Coitadinho, já passou. His golden
Get this
age is
figure and more
over.
at Luna Toy Store. Hey, my name is Jobby, and happiness truly is a warm gun. That's a popular Beatles song, which I mentioned
Oh,
for no
não.
reason at all. So a little
Isto é um daqueles
background on
ADHD
this guy.
vídeos,
This
meu.
figure has been a long time coming. Many third-party companies have tried their
Epá. Repare que a malta só vê ADHD stuff, meu. Quer dizer, eu digo isto, mas o vídeo do Aleph era de um velhote em 50 horas a estragar uma câmera, não é? Portanto, isso acho que é tudo menos ADHD. Portanto, foi injusto para o teu velhote. Desculpa, Aleph. Desculpa, Aleph. Como é que eu ponho isto no pip sem pipalhar? Ok, tive que fazer isto.
Get this figure and more at Luna Toy Store. Hey, my name is Jobby, and happiness truly is a warm gun. That's a popular Beatles
2
song, which
segundos.
I mentioned for no reason.
Ok. Em 9 segundos o vídeo já teve um screamer e tipo aí 10 cenas diferentes. Holy shit, man.
Oh,
Jesus
so a little
Christ.
background on this guy. This figure has been a long time coming. Many third-party companies have tried their hand at a masterpiece-style Megatron figure. One of them which I reviewed on this channel, namely the X-Transbots Apollyon. But I can safely say with the utmost confidence that the Masterpiece Transformers Megatron MP36 blows Apollyon out of the water. Now I understand that the title of Best Megatron Figure Ever is a bit of a heated debate. Some people absolutely despise what Takara Tomy has done with their favorite Decepticon leader, and of course you're entitled to your opinion, but with all due respect, fuck off. The painting of the sculpting on
Jesus
this figure
Christ.
is amazing.
Who cares
but
about
what I
this?
won't
Sem ser
stand
o
behind
Aleph.
is that this figure is the most show-accurate Megatron figure.
Há
I
mesmo
even
uma
argue that
comunidade
all
do
of the
género a dizer,
Masterpiece
o boneco está mal
style Megatrons are
feito.
equally
Deve haver.
show-accurate. Because let's face it, the cartoon model was wildly inconsistent. However, out of all these different proportions, I prefer the proportions on this guy. But I do gotta admit that the back is a bit of a mess. Of course, this was because of the extremely complex transformation, which was a bitch to film. Please do not skip it when it comes up. But in
Mas o
terms
gajo
of Cable One
fica
Transformers,
mesmo a
this is
pistola de jeito
definitely
ou
not the
fica uma
worst. Now,
merda?
what this guy has over a figure like Apollyon is
parece que tem
the
o
fact that
scope
it's actually
da
really fun to
pistola.
handle this guy. On the topic of his weight, his feet are made out of die-cast metal, and I'm not completely sure if this barrel is die-cast metal. I don't know, my cold touch technique is failing me right now. As fun as it is to handle this guy, it brings up a minor issue. Moving this guy around leaves it vulnerable to paint chipping, but it doesn't
Sabes
bother
que é
me
cool?
as much as I thought it would. I guess I'm just blind about how much fun I'm having. And while we're talking about the paint, I'm actually not
É
the
fun ver
biggest
pessoas
fan
a falar
of the
sobre
color
coisas
they
que
went with this
gostam e
figure.
que as
I actually prefer
entusiasmam.
the brighter colors of Apollyon. Now I get the need for Takara to be show accurate, but even the cartoon was a brighter shade of gray, almost bordering on white sometimes. Maybe if the gray on here was just a lighter shade of gray, it would look better. Oh fuck. What Takara absolutely nailed was the chest. It's got just the right proportions. It's not too wide, and I'm sure that has to do with the fact that this chest is a fake. That's right. This thing does not end up as the side of the barrel of the
Boo.
gun. And because the chest is fake, you can easily replace it with this battle damaged chest part. And I'm sure you Transformers fans know where this is going. You can switch out the beautifully sculpted face for terrifying and unnecessary, but an admirable attention to
Construir?
detail. As I was saying, you can switch
Não,
out
ele
the
vai a
face for a
transformar,
battle
porque é um
damaged
Transformer,
face.
certo?
Looks amazing so far, but you can't fully replicate that famous scene without this mysterious gun that kind of appeared out of nowhere. I'm sure it belonged to another Decepticon in that battle. Leave it down in the comments below. That just tabs right into the hand and wrap the fingers around. Now I can truly
A gun
say
holding a gun?
you also get this lightsaber from the same movie.
That's
which
gotta be
also kinda came
something,
out of nowhere.
right?
That also tabs into his hand pretty easily. All of my fellow fans of Transformers the Only Movie are probably shitting their pants with joy. You could even remove the beam from the sword and put it in the barrel of the gun.
That's pretty
You
cool.
can't really recreate the whole scene if you don't have this little
Podes
shit.
mudar o raio laser.
You also get a standard masterpiece card with a
Gunception.
picture and some stats. As for his other accessories, you get pretty much the same stuff you got with Apollyon. Which makes me wonder, is the key to Vector Sigma and the clone control helmet that important to Megatron as a character? I honestly couldn't say. I didn't grow up with the G1 show. Also, the key to Vector Sigma's die-cast metal, but who cares about this thing? But what
Os
I am
bonecos são para
familiar
brincar.
with is his Energon mace. You simply slide off his hand and slide the mace
Honestly,
right in, but there's only so
wouldn't
much
know.
poses
Tens de
a
perguntar ao
dangling
Watson.
chain can get
Watson tem
you.
para aí
That's where
300
this
destes.
disposable chain comes
E está
in.
sempre a comprar mais. Portanto, tens que lhe perguntar.
with an amazing concept and it's executed pretty well. But there's a part of me that wants a chain with more posability other than
Eu acho que o pessoal costuma meter atrás de uma vitrine, mas
you could get some decent poses with what you
honestamente, eu não sei se conseguia comprar isto sem brincar com eles.
In addition to that battle damage face, you get the neutral face, the yelling face, and the maniacal grin.
Megatron, foi a última vez que tentaste conquistar a Terra e estava assim o dia todo, em vez de trabalhar. É isso que eu faria se comprasse isto.
And if this excessive shoulder cannon wasn't enough, you can take its fusion cannon, slide it right into here, and now
Repara,
it's
ele
not
tem
a
uma
gun
bazuca
face.
raios laser.
I don't know. I honestly.
Ah, deste calibre. Eu já vi.
As for the stock, it can cleverly convert into a stand, and it also can combine with the silencer to form
Já
a
vi.
damage
Olha,
stand.
a Ultimate Luís estava na FNAC no outro dia e estava. E apareceu-me o boneco do. E estava lá o boneco do Breath of the Wild, o Link. Aquilo deu-me tanto, mas tanto, vibes do amiibo do Shulk. Comecei a pensar na música do Breath of the Wild com uma flauta mal tocada. Comecei-me a rir sozinho na FNAC. Não estava sozinho, estava com a Catarina, acho eu. Jesus Christ. Funko Pop são a merda mais estúpida de sempre. Por acaso, regra geral, não gosto nada de Funko Pop. Mas tenho Funkos do... Tenho um Funko do Cuphead que acho que está perfeito. Acho que o Funko... Parece que o Funko só serve para uma coisa. Para uma franchise e é para o Cuphead. Eu não sei se são mesmo os únicos que dão fit com a... Como é que se diz? Que dão fit com o design dos bonecos da franchise. Não sei se são os únicos. Mas provavelmente são. Não era a mim? Olha, espera aí, consegues vê-los? Tem aqui atrás, mas se calhar estão muito pequeninos. Exato. Yeah. Acho que acho que é um bom fit, mas qualquer outra franchise... Epá, mas o problema é que tem muitas, mas mesmo muitas. Mas a maior parte das franchises que eu vejo à venda, e tu confirmas-me isto, Aleph, não dão um bom fit com o Funko Pop, o design do Funko Pop. Se está bom, eu gosto muito. Eu gosto muito, muito, muito deste jogo. Also, Vitago, como é que é? Estás bom? Tinha saudades tuas. No outro dia estava a pensar, fogo. Saudades do Vitago, esse gajo é um gajo mesmo fixe. É um gajo mesmo gajo. É um gajo mesmo gajo. O que é que tens jogado? O que é que tens trabalhado? Os Funko Pop... Aleph, dirias que os Funko Pop são os NFTs, mas físicos? Eu diria que sim. Acabei de ter a realization. Acabei de ter... Oh meu Deus, são mesmo... São NFTs físicos. Hã? No Man's Sky Lamau? What does that mean? Atualmente o NMS não funciona? What? What do you mean? It all comes together, man. Funko Pop não podem ter NFT. Aquilo dá para vender. Olha, se NFTs não dessem para vender, ninguém se metia. O único propósito de ter um NFT é para vender o NFT. É a única razão pela qual arranjas um NFT. Não jogo multiplayer? Não, tu não me pedes para ir fazer missões. Eu curti fazer umas missões multiplayer. Bora ali ao Anomaly, eu e tu. Atualmente não posso jogar com os meus amigos. A sério? That fucking sucks. Nem sabia. Epá, eu queria. Queria ir contigo e com o... Como é que ele se chama? Com o Zen Boy. Sorry. Já não me lembro o que é que estava a fazer. Deixa eu ver. Vou continuar a pôr o Mega Trainfeld aqui.
But this has got to be the best execution of this idea. And if we just uncombine that, the stock by itself could actually act as a flight stand for this figure, which is
What was I
seemingly hard to
doing,
believe since
man?
this figure's so heavy, but it works
Ai, arranjar.
fantastically. And now can we finally? No discussion about G1 Negatron is complete without mentioning the fusion cannon, and this guy's fusion cannon has
What?
some special features. Pretty cool feature, but that blast sound gets annoying after a while. But wait, there's more? Yes, switch this clear red part up.
O que é que eu compro?
And if you know what he's saying, leave a translation for his quotes down below. I don't speak anime. I understand this is a Japanese figure, but I wish it was Frank Welker's voice.
Why throw away your life so recklessly? Such heroic nonsense. Ah, those were the good old days back on Cybertron. Didn't have to sneak around in these ugly Earth disguises.
What is he
For
talking
his
about?
final sound effect gimmick. Maybe it's because I'm biased towards Frank Welker's original performance, but I wish instead of a sound effect gimmick,
Above
it would have
average?
had an LED. The batteries of this feature are located here, and you can see the LR44 batteries, which of course did not come with it. And finally, after all
B-pilot?
of ball joint at the head, which allows him to look up that far, and this part actually moves, which allows him to look down that far. The barrel on his back can actually swing forward, so it can be under his arm. Rotation at the arm, forward movement, arm moves out. These flaps on his back can move out of the way so you can spread his arm. Biceps swivel, bend at the elbow, up and down at the wrist, a wrist swivel, hinge at the thumb, hinge joint at the fingers, and a bend
guy
at the
sucks.
knuckle. The trigger finger's independent, but the other three fingers are not a problem. Ab crunch, side skirts move out and rotate, front skirt moves
Eu quero
out,
killer.
allows for a beautiful kick, can move back that far, beautiful spread. Thigh swivel that's so tight that I don't understand how it got like this in packaging. Bend
What?
at the
Off the
knee, up
trail?
and down at the ankle, and a pivot. Megatron's posability
Come on,
makes
man.
me wish that the Masterpiece Optimus Prime could do more.
Don't you want
And
to
that
kill
is
for me?
basically perfect. Being the great leader of the Decepticons, he better be a big boy. Here's Figma
É nas Playstations que pode ser. Pode ser aqui e este também pode ser as Fragrants.
And the X-Transbots Apollyon. And when seeing these two side by
Pois,
side, I
esqueci-me
can
de falar
still say that Apollyon
sobre
is
isso ao
not a
live.
bad
Sim, estes
figure.
bonecos
He's
são...
just no fun to handle and is a little lifeless. Now,
Espera aí.
something I absolutely love about
Estes bonecos têm que ter isso, sim. Tens que poder brincar bem com eles. Até porque eles têm que conseguir transformar-se. Certo? São Transformers. Holy Grail. Eu por acaso não sei. O Watson é que deve saber, não? Acho que há stores em que eles têm mais quality. Não sei.
this guy is that on first glance, it almost looks like this guy can't transform. That's how proportionate it looks. But of course you see all those panel lines and
Tens
that
que comprar
crappy back,
o
and
espaço
yeah,
na
this is a
freighter.
terrible
O quê? Para
segue.
aumentar a
Wait.
squad? Sim. A tua squad pode ter até 4 gajos. Eu nesta altura já posso ter 3, mas estou a recortar o terceiro gajo. Ei, isto é o gajo a transformá-lo? Que trabalheira. Jesus, os sons. Bruh, estou vidrado. Estou vidrado na transformação. Um cheater deu-te 438 billions of unities. That's crazy. Por isso vou simplesmente uma freira. Ah, mas os gajos tens que desbloquear com nanites.
And here we have his gun mode. And while the
Yay.
complex transformation may have looked like complete cancer, I can assure you it's very fun to do once you get the hang of it. And the fact that you
I
can go
guess.
from a tall, bulky robot to a relatively slim gun, this really is a masterpiece.
Pessoal
of
dava skip,
Transformers
mas não é
engineering.
a parte mais
The gun
interessante?
itself, it's definitely not perfect. Handle's a little bit too thick and the bottom is kibble city.
sério?
but I do
What's the
prefer
point,
overall
then?
proportions of this guy to Apollyon's gun mode. And yes, I actually went through hell for this comparison, so you better be fucking grateful. The sound effects still work on this mode, and now we can bring back the stock and the silencer. You just push this button and slide it onto here, and the silencer is a bit of a complicated situation. Now there's been so many reports of the silencer getting stuck to the
Oh,
barrel,
no.
and that's because of a little attachment deep inside the silencer, which you can access by disassembling the silencer. Now some people suggest to remove that attachment entirely, but that just results in a
Causa dos
silencer with a
memes.
loose fit. I suggest that you remove that attachment, sand it down, and put it back where it came from or so help. That allows you to attach the silencer, have it plug in, but also have it be easily removable and prevent paint chipping. And fucking hell, it looks amazing. Am I gonna get demonetized for glorifying a toy gun? Shitty social commentary aside, this is a pretty big gun.
Damn,
On against
he's,
Godzilla, Optimus Prime, Apollo.
he's right.
Now let's get this guy back to his robot mode so he can receive his fucking, you know I think it's amazing. If you are a huge Megatron fanboy like me, trust me, I have the MySpace page to prove it. You owe it to yourself to
The
get
MySpace
this
page.
historical figure. I'm telling you, this guy is gonna be the standard for Megatron figures going forward. Same as how MP10 is the standard for Optimus Prime. But make sure to sell your kidneys first. Fuck off. It's really the only thing that's not amazing about the figure. The price is just insane. But regardless, this is an amazing figure
Jesus
and I
Christ.
highly recommend it. And if you're crazy enough to pony up the cash, why don't you get it at the Lunar Toy Store? What the fuck do you mean it's out of stock? Full transparency here, Lunar Toy Store did not give me this figure for free. This guy was so expensive that we actually had to split the cost. But while you wait for them to restock their Megatron, why don't you take a look at their other Transformers figures? So despite this guy being a gun, I
Tanto faz, Aleph, o valor das duas moedas está parecido
How
agora.
could I? The masterpiece
É quase o
MP36
mesmo.
Megatron is pure, unadulterated happiness. And you know what the Beatles say about happiness. Happiness
Which is bad news, I think.
Happiness is a warm gun.
Oh god, what is this? É isso que os putos querem ver? Oh god. Rotten Petals. Até acordou a cadela, meu. Desculpa lá. Foda-se. Ah.
I need a fix 'cause I'm going down.
Estou cheio de entulho, meu. Bem, é para continuar a ver as câmaras, não é? Mega Trainfeld. Eu gostei da transformação. Não gostei da brilheira, mas do resto gostei. Isso para mim é bastante interessante. Fuck, esqueci-me de dar play. Oh Vitor, anda cá a ver isto, meu. É para aprenderes a arranjar câmaras fotográficas.
Because any lubricant would do in that position, and I'm too lazy to get a different one.
Posso tirar as câmaras, mas as câmaras são calmas. Posso estar calmo, respirar devagarinho. Não tem gritos. É um espetáculo.
And the screw that goes through it is a shoulder screw. There's a shoulder that the lever can revolve around. There's a shoulder that the spring can revolve around.
Calma. Como assim, cagada?
Make sure you've got everything moving around the shoulders and not trapped behind it. That all looks good. I've got to get that spring hooked over there now, so I'll just get this sorted out.
Ele está a fazer um clá.
It's one of those
Recusas-te a mexer
tasks
nisso?
that's really easy if you have about 3 hands. No, there we go. That's done.
Não arranjas câmaras, Vitória? O que é que tens feito este verão?
Here we have the sprocket. The sprocket needs to go in now with the sprocket shaft. So
Ei, também é Ultimate. Obrigado pela companhia. Temos que combinar coisas.
take my sprocket shaft.
Aquilo é a parte de baixo da câmara e ele teve que tirar uma pele para poder aceder à parte
This runs through
interna.
the body casting towards the top here and at the bottom. Usually I'll put a little white just on the gear at the top, the teeth of the gear, for good measure.
Até à próxima.
Alright, look in the back of the camera.
Obrigado pelo vídeo do Joby.
Sprocket goes in here, the slot goes upwards. The shaft should just drop in, pass all the way through. Might need to help that line up with the hole in the... Use a pair of tweezers to pull that back, that allows that to drop right through.
Isto de facto é mesmo chill ao leve.
I'm just rotating
Acho que vou usar
this
isto para
to bring
adormecer.
the hole and line up here, where its little drive
Ah,
screw goes.
às vezes entras numa empresa de informática, acho que fazes tu muito bem. Dá-me a impressão que tu já tens alguma... Não sei dizer isto de outra maneira, mas parece que já tens alguma life experience ou professional experience. Portanto, isso há de ser fixe. Continuares.
It's always suspicious when things go smoothly.
Queriam alguém que soubesse de Python, Java e conhecimentos de programação orientada a objetos.
Return spring for a start.
What does that mean? Opa, querem um gajo.
Put some synthetic grease through the return spring.
Python.
Rewind button on there.
Java para quê? Para trabalhar em Android?
That washer.
Python deve ser o back-end. Ui, querem um full stack. Quer queiras, quer não. Quer tu queiras ser um full stacker
Top there
ou não sejas, vais ser um full stacker quando chegares lá.
of the sprocket shaft.
Tens que saber usar classes.
Check that
It's like a
pushes in
joke, right?
properly, it appears to. And taking my special pliers, we can tighten that up. Don't
You
overdo
can
that.
tighten it up.
The way I decide on the tension is I hold this sprocket with my thumb and tighten this up with the pliers, and if it hurts your thumb, that's tight enough. You don't need to overdo it. Let's have a look. Everything's in place there at the base.
É isso, programação orientada a objetos. É aquela cena das
I can
classes.
pre-tension the film advance on the bottom. Put the film advance lever and everything in position, I think.
Eu começo a achar que não estás a brincar.
Trim on the base plate and close up the bottom of the camera really. So I will gather up my bits and pieces
Ui, já estou cheio de copre.
and we'll do that.
Ih,
I'll
olha o
just
dinheiro
lift
que eles
that
pedem
lock
por isto.
lever out of the way. Hold back the release lever, rotate this clockwise one full turn, drop both of those levers back into position to hold things where I've left them. Right, the film advance is now
Jesus.
pre-tensioned by one full turn of the spring. I'll get its screws screwed into place here. Get the film
Não tenho nada
advance
aqui.
lever on there. Once the
Está da
film
frente,
advance
pá.
lever's on there, that film advance can't unwind. So it
Where the
means that
fuck
I
is the
can't
copper?
lose the tension on it. So there we have that. Here's my lever. Of course, I've got to come back and take the lever off later in order to fit the leverette to the camera base. But at the moment,
That sounds like a joke, Vitag.
This will
Mas
do
também
the job for us. Right,
o pessoal,
now relax and get these remaining screws in place.
o pessoal é muito mau a fazer anúncios. De qualquer das formas. Anúncios para emprego. No fim do dia aquilo é só tipo, mano, consegues fazer cenas e tu, sei lá, I guess. Eles, nice, então faz cenas. Está aqui um salário. Então, ok, obrigado.
That's good.
That's it, right?
That's that part done. You can check the action of the film advance. Make sure that's working correctly.
E tanta tralha.
That's moving smoothly. That's all that I require of that. Next, put in this bracket, the baffles and so forth, and the lever for the rangefinder. So I've got those three components to go in. Now this piece typically goes in one way up, and you can usually tell which way it goes because the holes, there's little knots in it. this
Are you
side.
listening to
You can
this?
see by the marks in the paint
Uma das
that it's set up that way.
posições Java Full Stack Hero.
Set in that
Oh,
way,
que caralho.
like that. That's the way
Eu nunca ouvi falar de... Mas eu também não sou um especialista em back-end, mas nunca ouvi falar de Java em back-end.
The hole here is where the shaft has to go for the
Se calhar é muito
transfer
bom, não
shaft.
sei.
No, that goes up to the
Até
right.
agora só ouvi falar de Java para Android.
Of course, that fell out loosely. That's
Ouvi
all right,
falar e
we can
mexi.
deal with that.
Deixa eu ver. Java...
That's fine. This piece. This goes in at the base of the camera.
Por Java Full
and there are
Stack
two
good. Is Java good for
short
full
screws
stack?
to hold that in place.
Full stack development is one of the in demand for the... I don't care. Like, que raio de stacks
Okay.
de Java é que existem? Isso é que eu quero saber. Tipo, onde é que se... Actually, Java and Python are the two leading full stack development technologies that all experts mostly recommend.
That's it,
That can be
okay.
true. Este artigo tem 10 anos para aí, não?
I bet I was out of picture there. Sorry about that. Put the screw in position.
I think Python full stack is better, diz um random guy.
Let's just put these two in. I'm not gonna go
Ok,
mad
mas eu gostava de saber
tightening
o
them up.
que é que se... O que é que se
Do it
faz?
before yet.
O que é que se faz com isto? Eu não sei.
Will it be possible to get this in? No, it won't. Okay. I'm wasting my time doing it that way. It was
Olha, um gajo
convenient.
escreveu Reasons why Java developers are in demand. This technology enables developers to write code for once
That's
and run
careful.
anywhere.
Oh, I'm not very pleased
This
about the
mainly
way
saves
that's rattling
development
about. I'm gonna
development
cheat,
time.
and I'm going to cheat by
Sorry.
putting a dab of glue on this so that it stays
On
directed
compilation.
in this
Espera aí,
piece.
deixa-me calar este
Let
gajo.
me find the glue.
On compilation, the Java program is compiled into bytecode and it is platform independent that can be run on any machine. Moreover, the bytecode format also provides security. It is object oriented, é por causa do Java. I mean, of course it is. Which means it follows concepts just such as class, object, inheritance, etc. Mas eles conversaram mesmo sobre isto, sobre ei, ópia. Is this for real? Tipo, conversar sobre isto? Anyway, it helps to develop the OP-based apps quickly, keeping the system flexible and extensible. Whatever. Reasons why Python coders are in demand. Em 2021? Wow. Python readability and dense syntax allow developers to express a concept with more ease. It allows developers to focus on the app's core functionality by taking care of general programming tasks. The programming language codes can be simply written and fastly executed than other languages. I think this guy is a bullshitter. No que toca ao Python. Seeing all the mentioned pointers, I can clearly say that both technologies are better. Wait, what? But you can go with Java if I talk about the best one. Este gajo deve ser indiano, caralho, não percebi caralho do que ele tentou dizer. I mean, to be honest, como é que Python coders are in demand? Se é a primeira coisa que te ensinam. Eu tenho ideia que o Python está a morrer. Deixa eu ver. Language. Espera aí. Havia um chart para isso. Programming Language Ranking. É tipo isso. Mas quero saber em 2022. Olha, Python está em primeiro. Eu pensava que ia ser JavaScript. Foda-se, juro que pensava que ia ser JavaScript, mas by a long shot. E não, é Python e depois Java. Holy shit, as coisas que te estão a pedir, já viste? VHDL. O primeiro eu não sei, a segunda sei. É super, super low level. All screen. Olha aqui. Python, Java, JavaScript, C#. That's the one I use. Às vezes uso esta por causa do Android. Às vezes olho para esta. Porque quem é que consegue escapar de olhar para esta linguagem? Ninguém. Se bem que esta está a subir muito porque o pessoal está a ficar farto disto. Mas isto é baseado nisto, ok? Isto é porque o pessoal está farto de ter problemas com isto. Mas é assente nisto. Objective-C só estive na faculdade e ninguém percebeu um caralho do que aconteceu. Isto é para... Eu lembro que isto era usado em... Como é que se chama? Apple. Merdas da Apple. Objective-C foi para isso. Kotlin. Isto era o que estávamos a usar para Android. Isto compila em Java. E então podíamos... Mas não compila só em Java. Compila em muitas merdas, mas Java é uma delas. E então o pessoal em Android está muito a usar Kotlin. Cheguei a ver código disto porque precisava de fazer umas cenas. Kissing Point VHDL. Ok, sorry. Já tinha lido. Júlia. Haskell dei no primeiro ano da faculdade, ninguém percebeu um caralho. E depois tiraram a disciplina. Nunca ninguém percebeu o que é que era isto. Provavelmente era demasiado cedo. Era tipo no primeiro ano. Isto é uma linguagem funcional, ok? Sabias que esta é tipo várias coisas? É funcional quando lhe apetece. É orientado a objetos quando lhe apetece. Deve ser por isso que é tão popular. É tipo, porque é muito flexível, I guess. I don't know, man. I'm talking to the boneco. E olha para isto. Na Índia os rankings parecem todos iguais, meu. Está visto. As linguagens que te pediram são as mais usadas. Este gajo está a mandar um ganda bugemon. Ok. Onde é que eu ia? O que é que eu hei de? Tem aqui um settlement, wall settlement. Então Itace, não? Wait, what?
Hello.
What are you talking about?
Right. Lob of the diesel.
Está a fazer as neiras, não estás?
And just take a toothpick. Apply some here. Not as much as that. Starting to make a mess.
Eu não percebi o que perguntaste.
Some here.
Ah,
And which way up did I
daqui a
decide
38
it went?
minutos vai acontecer uma
Decided it
coisa.
went that way up. Okay. I'll let that sit for 5 minutes until that adhesive goes nice and tacky. It keeps that piece in place. And that'll save me having to struggle with it. Okay, let's see if I can get this all together. It's certainly much easier putting that baffle in when the two pieces are nicely glued together. This piece. I need some way of holding that in position while I get the screws in position. Can I achieve it? Probably.
What is he talking about?
Technology recharge.
Oh, look at that. That went much smoother than I expected it to.
Os meus bros têm que me ajudar. Oi? Deploying combat fragment. Does this mean that they're coming?
Right, I'll do those two screws up tight. They were very short screws, those ones. Why they were so short?
Can I not kill my friend?
No. Our lever. Now, which way up did that go? Must have gone this way.
Eu acho que eles fazem
Okay,
truques
well,
comigo.
Being very
Oi?
careful with that pin in particular, so make sure you don't do anything to damage it. Just going to put a touch of molybdenum paste in the pivot points top and bottom there. If you snap that piece off there, that tiny little pin, it's not going to go well for you. Just don't do it. At the top,
What do you mean?
here's our screw. It has to pass through the top plate here, through the arm of this thing, and into the top of the lever. See if I can get these pieces all together.
Oh Vitago, já soubeste do último update do Tekken? Palhaço.
Right, so it's got to go into the top of that
Não és tu, palhaço.
there.
É o inimigo.
That screw start. And we get that hole lined up. Another one of those tubs you're going to need 3 hands for. Like that. Not the fourth one.
Is that it? Still more guys? Come on, man.
Right, so this piece
I'm
comes
tired of
with the
this.
rangefinder at the top of the camera, which tends to hold that forward.
Muito boas noites, Maria.
This piece here,
Seja bem-vinda.
pin from the lens moves that pushes this piece back, shifting the rangefinder. So that's in
Se queres
place.
aprender a arranjar uma câmera, tens aqui.
That's okay then. What next? Oh, I think they probably need to be thinking about putting the meter in place next. For the coffin.
Teamwork.
Everything, I can get the meter here. The meter's all got to go in place for this and the top and anyway. I'm just checking whether the front goes in with those chrome trims in place.
I think my bros are about to leave.
Yeah, something's catching on something.
Espero que seja tudo bem contigo. Está tudo bem contigo?
Yeah, looks like it will. Trying to get all my film advance stuff in here. Without any problem. Okay.
Já é quase meia-noite.
Let's tighten up these two screws. Put the chrome trim in place. I'll put these strap-like screws in at the rewind end. That'll hold this chrome trim in position. These
Por aqui.
holes
Está tudo
through
bem
the
também.
strap
Dou-se aqui a ver uns vídeos de câmaras fotográficas, outras de bonecos a serem
The
montados.
strap leg moved as far in this direction as possible.
Por aqui
Up
faz
against
tudo,
those
Maria.
screw heads. That virtually always works out to be exactly perfect.
Menos cheio de casa. Isso é que não.
Okay. Cocking rack should go on.
Isso é que não pode ser.
I'll check the position of that. See if that'll actually goes there. It might go one tooth further over. Just checking the engagement of the teeth at this end. Had it been a 3C, that would certainly be correct. Let's put a screw through here. To hold that in position.
Oh! Afinal, posso ver a minha crew.
Check the action of that film advance. Still not 100% sure whether that's going to be a goer or not.
Se calhar devia dar uma volta lá fora.
Runs under there neatly or not. Let's put a screw in here.
What happened?
Might need to move
Who's this
back
guy?
one notch yet.
Take it.
Yeah, it does want to complete. So
Agora
one
ajudei o
notch.
gajo. Consegui ajudar o gajo desta
Notch,
vez.
fine.
Ajudar pessoas é fixe.
Deal with
Gosto
that.
muito. Faz-me feliz.
Screw off. Lift this back one toe. And put everything back.
Sorry. Achas que é uma boa ideia?
Got that thumping noise off, but it's just a recycling truck collecting all the glass.
Não queres mais verão, mas assim é fixe. Pode estar tipo.
It's good, but it's a bit tight.
Nuinha.
I think it needs a shim washer.
Imagina, podes deitar na cama nozinha. No inha.
Need a shim washer underneath the screw at this point.
No inverno não podes fazer isso.
I'll put the other post in while I'm here though. Find a washer. This shim washer should do the job.
Olha. Com licença, sorry. Fair enough, Maria. I'm sorry to hear
Yeah,
that.
that returns the rest with
Sounds
this.
like it sucks.
Absolutely no problem.
Oh shit.
Now, the film advance in this camera, the rewind tension was wound up, as I said, at least a third of a turn more than normal. I suspect that
The
was
noobs.
done in order to make this run smoothly.
Já não li coisas nisto há
Because-
muito tempo.
Really, it needed a shim washer at the top instead. Anyway, that works nicely. This camera,
Nobody knows it, but you've got a secret smile.
yeah, we can carry on
Gonna
dealing with
use
this.
it
'Cause I
only
think that
for
first,
me.
with this model, I'm pretty sure I can
Cantar é negativo, não é? Nunca se deve
pretty
cantar,
much
não é?
completely assemble the top of the camera.
Nunca,
and
nunca,
put
nunca,
the
não.
shutter in as... No, I can't. Fooling myself. I thought I could put the shutter in last of all, but I've got to get the shutter release to couple to this, so I've got to have the
Catarina
top
põe
off the
stories
camera
e
to
não
do
sei.
that anyway.
Põe.
That's alright.
Ela foi ao. Como é que se chama?
Pop that to one side.
Super Rock, Super Bock, o caralho. E então.
What should I be doing next?
Quer uma semana.
I think
E
I might
então
stop.
está a meter fotos, sim. A Tainá também põe.
I'll put the rangefinder on the top of the camera
Photos
and the
or
meter
stories?
and its control cords and so forth.
Eles devem ser culpa a ilustrar. Oh god. É tudo igual, Aleph. É tudo o mesmo.
Yeah.
É tudo o mesmo evento.
Shutter release and could be the entertaining part of this job. So
E é tudo a
whilst
mesma
I've done
banda.
one of these, the Retina 2S is not a model that anyone sees many of. Basically, what happens that has to happen
Basically.
is that this release shaft here, the pin on the end of it, has to couple to this little hole on the lever here. And I don't think
Exato, eu também não faço ideia do que é que o Aleph está a falar.
you can do it this way.
Mas acredito que seja de facto uma coisa boa.
Or can you? Or no, I don't like the look of that. Oh, that's not nice.
E a Maria, sabes o que é que me apetece? Estava a falar com a outra Maria, ou seja, a Bita,
Twisting things up.
e ela disse-me:
What's that?
não sei, alguns surgiu baba de camelo e agora quero comer baba de camelo, Maria. E a pior parte é que não vou ter a tua companhia para comer baba de camelo. E só por causa disso já não quero baba de
Just
camelo.
checking here to make sure that that's seated correctly.
E agora
in
estou
the
triste.
baffle. It appears to be.
Agora já não quero ir para a cama se quero dormir.
It certainly feels a little bit tight there. There's a lack of clearance somewhere. That's better. Here's the pin for the rangefinder
Isso é porque não comeste a baba de camelo certa.
sitting correctly in position.
Isto é o que se diz às lésbicas, não é? Com a pila. Mas é verdade, muitas babas de camelo são bem podres até encontrares uma
Okay,
boa e é tipo,
that sits
ok,
down nicely. Now I know what was
afinal isto é
the
godlike
issue
e não
was
cocó.
there. That's good.
Tipo, a qualidade varia mesmo muito.
So the question becomes, which piece in which order? Well, the meter stuff certainly got to go on. What concerns me
Não estou a perceber
is
como é que...
getting the shutter release seated correctly. Could be fun. Okay, let's think about that one. Sure, that needs another turn.
Nobody knows it, but you've
Well, I'm
got a
going to start with
secret
the
smile
rangefinder. I
and
think
use
while I'm
it
thinking
only
about my
for
next
me.
move, I'll take this to bits. The rangefinder is quite similar to a rangefinder in a Retina 3 Big C camera. Its return spring's in a different position. The automatic spring
Isto é
might be
daquelas
like
músicas
that
que dá mesmo
too.
vontade de que seja real, não é? Tipo,
So, yeah, I've just been dealing with some
nobody
chaos.
knows it, but you've got a secret smile
Yeah,
and it's only
Microsoft
for me.
Outlook. One of my
Toda a gente quer que seja real, mas depois não
customers,
quer.
even though I'm not in business repairing computers anymore, one of my customers has my cell phone number and contacted me to ask about his Microsoft Outlook because apparently it wasn't showing the content of the body of the messages, only the hello Sean part, and that was as far as it got for Sean. And I advised him to run the repair tool and how to do it. Thought no more of it. And an hour later, my Outlook was doing exactly the same thing. So I had to go on the internet and discover that there's been some update and it hasn't gone well. So now, I believe another update's been put out, and I checked for updates, ran them, and my email is working correctly again, so I'm very pleased about that. And of course, I had to tell my ex-customer exactly how he could do the same. And then to compound things,
Eu acho que está literalmente ali.
the lawnmower man had some important missive that he needed to tell everybody about, and so he copied the message to all of his customers.
Isto
And
drama?
he used the carbon copy option, not the blind carbon copy option. And of course, his
Ele
idiot
está a falar de drama?
customers are already replying to his message, and everybody's getting the replies. And then people are puzzled about why they're getting the replies and sending more
Olha,
replies
afinal isto é,
back. So
afinal
the
isto é
chaos
fixe, meu. É só drama.
is just beginning to get intense. I've told him the error of his ways, but it's not going to go away quickly. Right, let's get this part sorted out. First I'll remove
Let's get
the
this
greasy
party
marks
started.
from this piece, because I want to clean that in the ultrasonic
Olá, boa noite,
cleaner.
Corai. Olá,
And I do not
olá,
want to be
olá, olá,
contaminating
Corai. Ai, 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 ai,
water
ai,
and
Corai.
detergent mix with anything like that. Just looking at the state of this. There's a
Sabes qual é a música em que eu me
fine
baseei?
mirror at the front there, like
Espera aí,
a
vou-te mostrar a
tiny
música em que eu me
little
baseei.
scratch. I don't know what could have caused that. It's
Já não ouço isso há anos.
Muito boa noite. A partir deste momento
Foi nesta
estão
música.
todos convidados para este programa feito de canções, jogos e emoções. As equipas e as claques estão preparadas. Vamos começar a fazer furor! escolha para jogar pelas mulheres estão aqui Adelaide Souza,
Grande Adelaide Souza.
Mónica Sofia, Lúcia Muniz, Ana Marques.
Parece uma banda de TikTok, meu. Uma dança de TikTok.
Rodrigues. Do outro lado estão os homens, são Jorge Gabriel, João Pedro Paes,
Meu Deus, que isto não é real.
Ricardo Carriço,
O God of War.
e Carlos Bruno. O valor não seria o mesmo sem a energética presença de Miguel Dias. E para fazer desta festa uma noite ainda mais
No meio disto tudo, o gordo é que é o.
Bárbara Guimarães.
O gordo é que é o energético. Olha, ele está a dançar, mas a Bárbara nem se vai mexer, aposto. É assim que eles acabaram o vídeo. Furor. Furor era algo. Algo de especial.
Bit of an odd pattern. And I'll clean this arm while I'm here.
Ai, fiz a asneira.
Now the front of the body here, that had some grease on it too. Yeah, it was lubricated here. I better get rid of that.
Curai, curai.
That's where that spring sat. Right.
Soltem
And where else
a
do I
verdadeira
here?
ficha, era baseado naqueles programas japoneses.
Here I'm just getting rid of any old grease, of course.
Pelo menos minijogos acho que eram
Most of
baseados,
it's
parecem os
sticky.
mesmos.
I mean, this rangefinder was sticky. It did not want to return.
Taskmaster também é
Correctly.
fixe. Já não conheço, já não vejo televisão. Deve ser por isso que já não. Que agora já não acompanho, não é?
Well, I've got this back from the ultrasonic cleaner.
Oh, Corei, tu que vês televisão, ainda. Existe algum programa equivalente ao.
Como
é que se chama? Ao Ultimate Ninja ou whatever, mas em Portugal?
So I put it through again with a change of
É Ultimate
water
Ninja
and
que se chama.
detergent, and that made all the difference in the world. It got rid of that haze, and I can only put it down to there being too much loose oil on the body of the rangefinder that had settled in the detergent solution and not rinsed away cleanly.
Ninja Warrior, é isso.
But it's
Acho,
good now.
pelo menos. Acho que tens razão que é
So there
isso.
aren't many other pieces of glass in the rangefinder to be concerned about. Here's the eyepiece there. Here, I'm just
Eu
cleaning
adoro
that.
esse tipo de programas. Curtia ver tugas a fazer isso. Um gajo tem que sempre ver, sei lá. Eu lembro de ver na SIC Radical e era tipo, ou americanos, ou australianos, ou lá o que é. Ou, I don't know. Não sei. Chama-me xenófobo, mas eu queria ver o meu país.
Having cleaned that surface, I can drop that into place.
Quero ver o meu país a fazer
Flat surface is
fazer
outward
isso.
here, and I can
Essas
clean that
palhaçadas.
in position.
Ninja Warrior diz mais. Será que vou falecer outra vez, pessoal? Vai ser um furor esta batalha. Oh Bita, continuaste a jogar o Plasmafobia? Eu disse Bita? Sorry, queria dizer Corei. Also, Maria, para te responder, a Maria era a Bita. Eu disse-te logo. Eu disse outra Maria, que é a Bita.
This is the piece with our frame lines on it, and that can drop in there. Now that had 3 shims underneath it, which is quite generous.
Faz-me um fã. Está a ser o teu entretenimento
Down
atual.
into position. Not wriggling down flat, I don't know why. Yeah.
Não tem mal nenhum, Maria. Eu é que também esqueci-me de responder quando perguntaste.
And then slide my shims in underneath.
Bit is allowed? Espera aí. Wait a minute. Are you jealous? Acho que precisamos ter esta conversa dramática. Acho que vai dar mais views.
With a quick look through that, the frame lines are visible and that there's no
Que grande tiro. Viste aquilo?
visible. That's good. This one,
Não joguei muito porque não tenho vontade de jogar sozinho. Joguei umas 7 vezes com amigos. Pois é um multiplayer, não é?
a wipe of molybdenum paste
Jogar com randoms deve ser muito weird.
through the
Não sei.
centre there.
Mas tu ainda.
Some on that
Não eras tu
surface,
que
pretty
conseguiste
lightly
jogar
on that
randoms?
surface.
Desculpa. Como é que se chama? Among Us com randoms.
And I see I did remember to mark it so that it goes back in the same position. That bush was almost
Foste tu?
certainly circular,
Já não me foste tu.
but because it's got a slot in it, it effectively acts a little bit eccentric, or potentially could be.
Olha para aquilo, vem aí uns sentinelas.
Back in exactly the position
Olha
they
sim,
came
mas é um
from.
toxic trait e eu estou a trabalhar nisso.
This
Pera,
is
pera,
the
pera.
return spring here for this arm.
Oh Maria, eu acho que estás muito errada e considerares. Espera aí, eu acho que o ato de considerares que jealousy é tóxico em si é tóxico. Furor, furor. Na 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 na. Ta na 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 na. Porque ciúme saudável existe.
Run that down with a pair of stiff tweezers.
Oi?
Just checking the action of that, making sure that it moves freely. It appears to.
Oi?
It doesn't need to move for all that distance. It's moving through a distance, something like that, and it seems to be
Jogos
quite...
sociais com pessoal random na internet sou a receita para o desastre.
That should be fine. So that's my range
Eu acho que
point
não
done.
necessariamente. Eu acho que não é necessariamente desastre. Imagina, ok, Toga, imagina que por acaso ficas amigo de alguém. Eu diria que isso não é um desastre, é um sucesso.
Yeah, to get the
Por
metric
acaso ficaste amigo de um grupo, de género, olha, vocês foram fixes.
fun. To get the
Isso
metric
nunca me aconteceu, porque eu nem
like
sequer
really,
jogo jogos multiplayer
at least
casuais, mas imagina,
needs to be
podia acontecer.
I think
Vamos todos para um Discord.
Get my spring bed here. Where's the release lever gone?
Porque imagina, Toga, eu diria que a receita para o desastre é mais jogos como o League of Legends, em que são competitivos.
Where have I put it? Over there, a second
Ah,
ago. Yeah,
não sei.
you know, the release lever, wipe of molybdenum paste through the centre of that.
E depois é tipo. Acho que jogos competitivos dão mais. Como é que eu ia dizer? Aso a uma pessoa ser tóxica com as outras, porque é tipo. Pá,
There's a notch in
este,
here.
tu és a razão pela qual eu estou a perder pontos. Eu quero pontos para ter mais rank e a culpa é tua. You know what I mean? Parece que foi feito para tu. Não é foi feito, mas parece que é um ambiente mesmo perfeito para tu, à partida, ficar zangado com qualquer erro que as outras pessoas façam ou a tua percepção do que é um erro. Tipo, não é?
It's sitting there.
Parece que foi feito para conflito interno.
Yeah, I see it'd be fun getting that front on. It's gonna have to be done though. Okay, so for the explosion meter sitting there, then we've got the explosion meter cord. Well, I've left mine on the drum at the
Ao
base.
invés de está-me a mandar bazucas raios de laser. Caralho. O meu guy
And the cord has to
dura
pass
sempre
up
tipo
through a hole in the body.
5
You
segundos.
see
Né?
this? Yes, yeah, just about 10. It goes through here.
Não é nada um furor, meu, quando ele... Ui, 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 ui. Tenho que ver a série da Netflix do Tekken, não me posso esquecer.
Cord. Go.
Eu até gosto da Among Us. Sorry, só agora
One
que
of
vi.
those goes to the back,
Só agora
one
que
of
estou a
those
ver.
goes to the front.
Mas não me dou bem a jogar com randoms, se bem que sim, cheguei a jogar com randoms. Anxiety. De onde é que vem a anxiety de jogar com randoms? Oi?
Think it was probably
No caso do
like
Among
that.
Us,
Let me go and check.
a anxiety é tipo nas reuniões? É tipo naquelas reuniões em que é tipo, ok, aquele gajo é que escolhe aquele para matar
I
aquele.
have the cord all coupled back up on the meter.
Ou o pessoal a perguntar-te,
Drum, and I
pessoal a
believe I have
perguntar-te,
that in the correct positions.
prova que não foste
Now,
tu
I'm
que...
going to post some. I've got some still photos.
Cala-te. Anyway, prova que não foste tu que mataste o gajo. O que é que estiveste a fazer? E é aí que tu ficas ansiosa, tipo, não sei lá o que é que estive a fazer.
Toxin protection falling.
Ai, que soninho. A tua childhood criou a ansiedade do presente, é isso? Why am I doing this? I'm not supposed to do this. Large artifact crate. No. What I need to do is to get the artifact fragment. I need like 4 or whatever. 3. I need 3. Olha que bicho giro. Eu gosto de bichos que são só formas geométricas. E se não for uma forma geométrica, digam assim: oh, do caralho, isso não é uma forma geométrica, é uma forma Balilex. E eu, ok, obrigado por me ensinarem. Oh, fuck. Man. Isto é chato porque eu tenho que encontrar um...
Incoming storm.
Eu só tenho 2 de 3 chaves. Como é que eu vou fazer isto? Estas quests, eu não sei se elas estão a funcionar bem, não é? Well, mais tipo outras crianças que não queriam interagir comigo, senti-me excluído e senti-me como um peixe fora d'água quando tenho que interagir. Mas a verdadeira questão é... mas como é que era com os teus pais? Como é que eles te punham a fazer coisas novas? Eu não sei se vou encontrar o que preciso. Acho que estas quests estão partidas. Já disse isto uma vez, mas volto a dizer. Peço desculpa a quem não gostar de repetição.
Toxin protection. Falling.
Não, quando digo coisas novas, digo qualquer coisa. Tudo é novo quando és uma criança, certo? Oh, fuck. Isto os pais estão sempre lá, tipo, género.
Toxin protection.
Enquanto tu lidas com coisas novas para ti, porque és uma criança.
Toxin protection. Falling.
Tens uma melga no quarto.
Toxin protection. Falling.
Só quando mudaste de ano no quarto ano. Mas que mudaste de escola ou assim?
Storm clearing. Extreme night toxicity detected.
Borrifaste o quarto com Biokill. Now that's a cool name. Olaf. Manda-lhe com Emotional Damage. Aposto que nem uma melga consegue aguentar com isso. Não é nocivo para nós. Nice. Quando eu precisar, já vou tentar lembrar-me do nome Biokill. Grita-se o saco para ela. Sim, apetecia-me falar e o gajo estava-me a... Apetecia-me falar e o gajo estava-me a incomodar, não? Estava a falar histórias de e-mails e não sei o quê.
Photos which I'll post, which show the position of
Fui eu
the
que te mostrei.
cord
Eu
quite
contei-lhes,
clearly,
Maria.
so you can see the
O Aleph
direction
pode
the
confirmar.
cord runs
E o
around
Toga.
the drums,
O Aleph e o Toga podem confirmar
and
que eu
which piece
contei-lhes que
goes on the front
foste tu que me
pulleys,
contaste
which
este
piece
domingo.
goes on the rear pulleys.
Claro que eles
And
para me
everything
contrariarem
you
vão
need
dizer
to
que eu
know
não disse
in order
nada.
to get the meter
Mas podes ver o
correctly
VOD
back
da
on the
stream.
camera. You can see I've got this set to ASA 10 here at the moment, and you can see the orientation of this meter scale relative to the camera. The details of how the cords wrap around on the drum you'll be able to see more clearly in these still photos. So, at this stage, that's looking pretty happy. I'm quite pleased
Hold
with
on,
that.
porquê que o jogo me está a dizer que eu não tenho
I'm
keys?
going to fit the rangefinder next and close up the top of the camera, which may or may not be the
Ok, esta quest está
best thing to do.
toda
I
partida.
might just put,
Eu não encontrei duas keys.
I've got a little blank end here, which I use when I'm doing the Retina 3S cameras. I might put that loosely on the top to stop the meter being disturbed while I get the front on the camera, and put the rangefinder on last of all, perhaps. Now, the reason I'm leery about
Tá
putting
rico
the
por causa do
rangefinder
menino.
on early is if I've got the camera
Olha que
top open,
a vida nunca é assim sempre
that's a lot of
tão simples.
shiny mirrored glass that I could easily stick my big greasy fingers on while I'm fighting trying to get the front
Cuidado
of the
com
camera in place.
assumir esse tipo de
And I'd
coisas.
rather not risk that because the semi-silvered, or the front surfaced silvered mirror in particular, if you
Raramente
get
é assim
that
tão
dirty, it's
simples.
exceptionally hard to get it clean again without
Momentos em
damage.
que é assim tão simples. Ganhar a
Virtually
lotaria ou assim. Diria que ganhar a lotaria é mais. Podes dizer que sim. É tipo, olha, um dia não tinha, no outro dia tinha. And that was it. Eu acho. Num dia comprei uma Bitcoin, no outro dia dei o scam a alguém, vendi e fiquei podre rico. Também é tipo só. Mas mesmo até isso dá um bocadinho de trabalho. Só um bocadinho. É muito pouco, mas é qualquer coisa. Isso parece-me uma evolução natural. Se ficares viral tens que criar mesmo. Tens mesmo que começar a vender merch e não sei o que, senão morres. Ou não aproveitas a coisa. E abrir uma loja e começar a vender coisas não é tão simples quanto isso, Maria. Tens que guardar as coisas num sítio qualquer, tens que distribuir as coisas. Tipo, alguém diz, quero a tua t-shirt, e tu tens de fazer com que a t-shirt chegue do teu storage até à pessoa, não é? Mas também tens de ter a loja tipo e-commerce ou whatever, tens de ter isso montado também. Estás a ver? Tipo, as coisas não vêm do nada, é isso que eu quero dizer. As coisas dão trabalho. Ficou parvo porque o foco do vídeo não era mal. Ok. Eu estava só a tentar dizer que a maior parte das vezes primeiro tens que ter sorte e depois pegas nessa sorte e tens de trabalhar sobre isso, estás a ver? Neste caso em específico a sorte foi a parte do emotional damage e a parte de trabalhar foi a cena dele aproveitar e montar uma loja, montar um sistema tipo, criar o merch, claro, e vendê-lo. Ele podia não ter feito nada disso, não é? Um youtuber que eu gosto. Ele é muito fofinho. Gostas dele? Tens de comprar o merch dele então. Olha, esta quest, esquece, meu, isto foi com caralho, mano. Não há cá keys para ninguém, meu. Mas quando eu cheguei havia. Estou a sentir o emotional damage na minha cara. Epá, vou mas é embora, meu. Abandon mission. Este alepão é um recuperador, meu. É melhor que um defesa central, meu. Do Sport Lisboa e Benfica. Oi?
Extreme night toxicity detected.
Olha o vídeo. Tínhamos esquecido.
Right, so next up, I think I will put a screw in the end of my partial housing here, which will keep the meter in place, and then I will put this aside and start working on the
Ai, que
shutter.
soninho.
Well, I suppose a bit of
Olha, já é
serious
minuto e
getting
meia,
into
man.
this.
Estás a passar?
Let's try getting in from the back. I'm pretty sure that this is the correct way to go about doing this. There's a retainer ring around the rear group of the shutter there, but I don't think that holds all this together. This come off? Yep. Okay, so that's off. Now here, there are 4 small screws, and I'm pretty sure they hold
Estás
the
em birra?
shutter in place. Here's our flash connection wire. I'll probably have
Se
to
calhar-
disconnect that now, I would think.
Se calhar isso
Get
é,
that loose.
é sinal de que não estás satisfeito com o teu dia de hoje.
That's just a little clamp, like used to connect on the connections.
Que é que o resto do pessoal
3S
acha?
camera.
Vota 1 se acham que eu tenho
Ok.
razão. Vota 2 se
There's
acham
our
que eu
range
não
finder
tenho
coupler,
razão.
and you've got to be careful not to break that. It won't be much fun finding a replacement if you break it. And there are 4 small screws.
Acho que
here.
amanhã tenho que ir
I
trabalhar.
believe they hold the shutter in place
Feeling
on
low?
this front section.
That sucks. Votas 3. Mas não bastava votar 2 e assim já eras do
Very
contra.
tight.
Soninho pequenino. Eu gostava muito de dormir hoje.
The XM lever here is
A ideia de dormir deixa-me mesmo feliz. Tipo, se conseguisse, obviamente. Mas eu nunca sei se vou conseguir, é um bocado rata-pe. Emotional damage. Eu não sei se
on my
o.
rangefinder pin is
Oh, Toga, não sei
stopping
se o Wolf te
me being able
contou,
to rotate this as far as I would like
mas hoje
to.
o Valkyrie estava a jogar
So it means I'll
Taken
need
e nós
to remove
estávamos no
the,
voice chat também.
lens from the front, I think, because I really need to rotate this on the housing in order to get this
E
XM
foi,
setting
foi
lever out of
relativamente
the way.
engraçado.
So,
Digo isto
step
porque
back
lembrei-me
for
do
a second
rata-pe.
while I,
Eu estava
shut
a assistir em direto
the lens from the front.
ao Val que estar cego de
Remind
raiva na
myself
medida
how I
em
go
que
about doing that.
ele estava a projetar e não estava a reparar. Regra geral, quando estamos a projetar não reparamos, é verdade. Mas ele estava a projetar fucking hard, as in... O gajo... Já sabes que a nova dele é
This name
dizer:
ring
epá,
may
este gajo está a ser
well
boi da
unscrew.
rata.
I'll have to test that out. Well, I think
O Valk,
friction tool here is actually the
enquanto ele dizia
solution.
isto, o Valk estava tipo a sacar da move list toda, nem ele próprio sabia o que é que estava a fazer.
Move that black
Não,
Conical
that's
piece.
projecting. Esse sim devia ter
and 3 screws
a tag
become
que
exposed.
como é que se
And
chama?
I think that I should be able to
Que o
unscrew
Ravage está a
that
ter
lens with a
agora.
bit of
A tag do Ravage, do projetor.
effort. Let's try slackening those screws up. This is the focus adjustment, I believe. I should be able to roll this lens
Epson.
right out.
Achei engraçada essa cena. Já não é o Epson.
Yeah, it's just
Well,
unscrewing the whole lens
That
now.
sucks. Sempre queres combinar algo? Quero sim senhor, quero
Ok.
sim. Porquê?
That's my rangefinder
Porque sim.
coupling pin.
Quando?
Now that's a straight pin.
Deixa-me pensar. Talvez amanhã?
It looks
Amanhã-
like it's slightly
Amanhã é
relieved
sexta, não é?
on the frontmost part. I probably could have pulled that out right from the back without having to fight with it. However, live and learn. Now, can we get this shutter apart? What am I wanting to do?
Está-se bem, é isso.
Oh, I didn't see what I did then, but something came loose.
Claro que também pode-se. Eu não sei quanto a ti, mas provavelmente ao domingo podia.
What's it catching on?
Ai senhor, não estragues a câmara.
Not that sharp.
Senhor. Ele não estraga.
From
Pronto.
memory, I've
Lá vou eu
just
ser
gotta rotate this out.
processado.
I think I'm being jammed by it.
Ó Corai, sexta ou domingo, se for assim sono, o que é que achas?
If I remove the rear lens group, will that make that easier? It may well do. I'll remove the rear lens group.
O que é que a Catarina anda a fazer? Eu acho que ela ainda está no Superbox Super Rock.
I just used the friction tool there.
Isso é só impressão tua? É só porque... É por ele ser kiwi? Eu não sei o que é um
That may give
kiwi,
me the
mas
extra clearance I need
devia comer mais
to
fruta.
get this out.
Mas eu não sei se ela amanhã ainda vai estar.
Yes.
Ela estava preocupada com a
There
gata
we
dela.
go. So it took some wriggling. Had to remove the rear lens group in order to give myself wriggle space. And I have the shutter out.
Pelo por fora e ver por dentro.
The self-timer is set now, of course.
Kiwi não é australiana,
And the shutter in this case is well gunked up.
diz a Maria.
Right. Clear the decks here slightly. I see
Pareceu
my
uma
first
afirmação, mas eu acho que ela
contact
estava a fazer
wire is coming
uma questão. Not sure.
through. That has come, well, unsoldered from this point.
BRB, a gente combina por Discord.
In from the front now.
Está-se bem.
The depth of field pointer control, all this is in the front unit here.
É o ladinho.
You can take that off as a piece. You don't need to disturb that if you're desperately keen not to disturb it.
Ladinho ladolas.
I think this centre lens group here needs to come out so I can dismantle this further.
He wants to dismantle.
I'll just remove the lock screw and
Ui,
see if the
será que ele
collar
consegue tirar?
unscrews and will come out
Dera ser kiwi.
with that
Aleph, diz a verdade. Tu
lens
queres tudo que, não,
in place.
que constitui não seres tu. Mais importante de seres kiwi era não seres português, certo? Porque é o que és. Queres ser uma laranja? Só toca, já tenho para aí 30 laranjas, toca.
This centre lens
Ah, fiz a referência antes de ti.
group or element here needs to come out with that
Depende do delay.
back
Na
off.
tua percepção depende do
I want
delay.
my lens spanner. That's very greasy. I'm going to use a
Podia estar
spanner on
pior,
this rather
podia ser
than the
americano.
friction tool because that's as greasy as, and there's no danger that the friction tool will have any friction. Oh, let's see if
Com neste
this will
momento
do the job
ucraniano.
for me.
Eu acho que ser português está-se. Não é mau, está-se bem. Está-se bem a ser português. Pelo menos não tem razão de queixa.
That's very, very tight.
This guy's humble to see me.
I would say there's a great likelihood that that'll chew out and damage those slots. So I may go a
Ser-se
different.
português é miserável. Fala por ti, bro.
What I can do is make a tool like this. Something that will
Fala por ti,
engage
Brosafino.
those two slots, and then I can put in a vice and then rotate the shutter around it to loosen it off. I think that's my best bet. The feel of that, as I tried to unscrew it with the tool, was such that I don't believe it's likely to come out without a fight. I don't have a tool that'll engage that in the way I want to get that to turn. I have a selection of tools that I've made in the past for doing similar jobs.
Enfim, tu dizes isso. E no momento em que fores, sei lá, um dia viver para um país tipo, sei lá, Inglaterra,
Fanciness and so forth. And these have all been
voltamos a
done
conversar
much
e vai
the
ser
same
muito
way. Some
interessante.
of this is some stock here. This is roughly an eighth of an inch thick. This steel stock, quite hard stuff. And you can see I've milled that down both sides to leave a tang in the middle.
Vai ser altamente.
And I've just
Pode ser
cut that
Alemanha.
away. So
O que é que é?
I've
A
used
Alemanha é
these.
fixe, não é?
This is a
Ah,
different
mas aquilo tem
design. That
nazis,
one
eu-
would do a
exato,
lens
em
that
2022.
was Slightly larger than that.
Existem à volta de mais ou menos
The other side
0,100
that I've made to do the same job for a lens that was smaller than
0,100
that.
e 0,0000 nazis.
You can also make a tool like this, which I've made at some previous occasion.
A Alemanha é
That's too
incrível.
wide for
Pronto,
the job.
então ias adorar. Íamos adorar. Eu ia adorar
I made
ter uma
this
conversa
once upon a
contigo
time too, when I
depois de
needed
viveres na
to get
Alemanha durante uns tempos.
something loose, and
Ia-me rir para
basically it's
caralho.
just a pin spanner arrangement, adjustable, but you can get an awful lot of good leverage on that to get things loose. I don't think I've got the depth there to get those pins seated in there, otherwise that would be a goer.
Tem de ser sujeito a uma sessão de pancadaria para te fazerem. Oh, eu pensava que estavas aqui a falar a sério e agora vens com isto.
This pattern's quite good.
Interesting
You can
discoveries.
see you just got a narrow
Repara como eles têm que
slot
chamar
there.
interesting às quests, que é para tu ficares tipo, se calhar é interessante.
It just has to be narrow enough to fit
Mas depois
inside
enganou-te
this
bem.
gap. And in use, I just place that in the vice with just the top piece sticking up. Engage the shutter on it. Twist it with your hand. You'll get it loose. No problem at all. No fights, no damage
No
to
problem.
slots or anything like that.
Isso
It is
com
much
sanguinidade.
more reliable when
Holy
things are very
shit.
tight when using a tool
Estamos-
like this, which has just got too
Estamos
much
muito
give it.
English hating
Too
hoje.
much
O que é que se passa?
In a tool like this, it'll flex, it'll let go, it'll make a mess of something.
Jesus.
Have
É porque
need
saíram
to
da
apply a
União
lot of
Europeia?
force. Much better to
Expliquem-me
use
lá o
something
hate. Eu não sei se é
that's
português.
not gonna move.
Vocês
Gonna stay
sinto que
there.
partilham aí uma
It's got plenty of strength
uns ideais
and do the job.
de
So,
xenofobia e não sei o
I'm
que,
down to the,
que isso se calhar é que
machine-
constitui ser verdadeiramente
machine
português.
something up.
Eu sou fake.
And I'm just looking to see if I can utilise one of these tools. Possibly my answer here is just to take the end of this, because I've got the width. This is
Basta
quite a
ser-se
width.
monarca. Oh god.
That's wide enough to engage those slots.
We're going downhill
So
now.
if I machine off the edge of that, to give it an edge like this,
It's happening.
and stick this in the vise, it'll probably do it. It would be better if it was slightly wider, so that there was no danger of it slipping sideways out of the slot. But it's pretty close.
Estou-me
I
nas
don't think-
tintas. Se
I
calhar
don't
dava
think I'll
jeito de
have
viver
any
noutro país
problems.
porque dinheiro.
So, me off with some engineering.
True.
Go back to having a cup of
Mas isto
coffee.
é mais miserável que aqui.
In the interests of making the engineering something
Mas também a única coisa que
simple
importa é
that
dinheiro,
most people
portanto,
can
que se
achieve
foda,
without too much in the way of equipment,
Que se foda, está
What do I have
miserável.
here?
Desde que tenhas dinheiro.
is a table knife. Butter knife, nothing
Ai,
too
ai, ai.
fancy. Good strong steel. I'm just going to cut a piece off, wide enough to fit down into that gap, and the width of the blade looks like it's just right to fit into those slots and engage them.
Quick to
And I'll use
desktop.
that. I'll just cut a piece of that, stick that down in the vise and use that. Now this is good. You could probably cut that
Tipo
with a
onde?
hacksaw.
Toga?
I'm going to
No
use an
Havaí?
angle grinder. But it wouldn't be hard.
Estás a falar do
regardless.
Havaí?
You'd be able to cut that one way or the other with minimal tools. What do I want
Viste a
for
série
length?
do Hi-Fi 5.0 e agora achas que é divertido estar no Hi-Fi?
28mm would be ideal.
I'm just trolling, okay?
Well, 5 minutes later I've got the piece of knife that I want. So I'm just gonna
Suécia,
take this down
Suécia, Suécia, Países Baixos.
with just the edge sticking up to engage these
Se tens
slots.
acesso a dinheiro, tens muitas coisas
Hey, man.
garantidas.
Unscrew the lens, the shutter from the lens. Easy. Well, that worked exactly as expected.
Olha, tu só precisas ter um
Absolutely
mínimo
no
para. Em termos de dinheiro, só precisas ter uma certa quantia para garantir segurança e a partir daí o dinheiro não te traz mais,
And if your 12
mais felicidade
piece
nenhuma.
place setting has now only got 11 places, well, I won't be telling anybody about it. There's the lens, we remove that. And I can go back to getting this retainer ring off the front of the shutter. I should be able to remove this front in one piece. I'll get into this and clean this
Aí,
further down
olha,
the track,
vou já buscar a
but
guitarra, meu.
There we have the
Kiriki, kirikiriki.
this is fairly
Luta, luta,
conventional.
camarada, luta. Luta, luta, camarada, luta. Luta, camarada. Contra a reação. Olef, continua a falar. Encontrei o vídeo para ti.
Representantes do movimento mais antigo do povo, pá, ao oprimir, pá, que é a luta.
Isto só pode ser uma piada, pá. Juntar na mesma frase economia e inovação em Portugal, pá. Isto é 2000 de entrada de recessão, pá. Olha o que é que fazem às empregadas do Ministério da Administração Interna. É arrumar a caixinha e vai para a rua, pá. É uma pouca vergonha, pá.
Luta, camarada Aleph.
População de Lisboa, pá, e oficializar a candidatura da luta à Câmara Municipal da cidade.
Olha, este é o da justiça, falência. Porque aqui na justiça em Portugal é quem tem dinheiro safa-se sempre e quem não tem dinheiro está sempre...
Não achas piada porque ele consegue capturar a tua essência.
Isto é a última instância.
E o Aleph? Como assim? Eu não saio de casa.
Nós só temos denúncias. Denúncias.
Ok, eu paro. I'm sorry, eu paro.
Pá, e basicamente luta, que é isso.
O homem diz que vai criar 110 mil postos de emprego. Isto deve ir crescer pelo menos aí uns 50 andares de falência, pá. Isto vai precisar de jobs fora da voz até que nunca mais acaba, pá. Olha!
É que sempre que o Aleph fala, eu lembro-me destes sketches. Não é sempre, é quase sempre.
É raro o dia em que lá está gente, pá. Está um ali, está outro lá, um dorme, o outro lê a bola, o outro fala ao telemóvel, etc, etc. É uma pouca vergonha, pá. Desculpem lá a gente ter acordado algum de vocês, pá. Está a acordar que já é dia, pá. Quem é que vai ter dinheiro para vir morar em frente ao rio, pá? Não são os jovens, pá.
Ei, o
Os
António
jovens
Costa,
estão
meu.
em Lisboa que não têm dinheiro para
comemorar em Lisboa, pá, é uma pouca vergonha, pá. Quem vai para a Câmara somos nós, quem vai para a Câmara somos nós, quem vai para a Câmara somos nós. Eu sou o povo.
Eu já meter o megafone no ouvido.
Pois quando formos eleitos vereadores, estamos abertos aqui para acordos pós-eleitorais consigo, pá.
Se nós começarmos a fazer coisas mal, vamos à luta contra
nós próprios. A frase da campanha é um megafone na Câmara. Este banco, que é um banco de investimento, pá, vai à falência e pedem o dinheiro do Estado para realmente salvar isto, pá. Como nós não prometemos nada, não nos podem acusar de nada. O surto da gripe, pá, nem medicamentos tinham para dar às pessoas, pá, mas que é isto? Isto é o terceiro mundo, ok? Quem tem dinheiro é que é tratado, pá, quem não tem dinheiro espera, pá, adeus. E olha, boa espera para vocês todos, pá. Por acaso não tem sardinhas, não, pá. Viva a crise. Viva a crise. Nada é tão...
Viva a crise! Vive-se bem em Portugal, é verdade.
Da precariedade, pá, das fábricas que estão a fechar, pá, do aumento do custo de vida. Isso mesmo, pá! De cima, pá, obrigam as coitadinhas das freiras, nem vida sexual tem, coitadinha, pá. Coitadinha, ela e a noiva do senhor, mas o senhor não sai da cruz para consolar, pá, é uma pouca vergonha, pá. Venho aqui batizar um vizinho meu. Mas aqui, pá, vou fazer uma festa das outras. Estamos aqui, viemos aqui lançar a nossa candidatura à Câmara, pá, para ganhar. E assim, pensamos que você tenha que votar no Santana, pá. Assim pode votar no São Luís da Luz.
Balsemão, já faleceu, meu.
Que belo exemplo estão os professores a dar a estes alunos todos, pá! Que belo exemplo eles vos dão, pá! É dia semana sim, semana não, marcam greve. E sempre à sexta-feira, que é quando dá mais jeito, não brincas, pá! São pouco espertos, são, pá! Ensinar é o que eles não querem, pá! Dá-lhe silêncio! Escola, escola, escola em Portugal! Escola, escola, escola em Portugal! Escola, escola, escola é a reação!
Posso comer e beber, continuar aqui.
Muito bem, pá, mas desculpe lá que a gente vai ter que dizer um bocado mal disto, pá. Eu nunca punha aqui os pés aqui dentro, pá, nunca, jamais, pá. Até era capaz de apanhar uma intoxicação burguesa ou fascista, pá, dá-lhe falência. Nunca pôr os pés, nunca pôr os pés, nunca pôr os pés no sítio da reação. Nem tremoços nem nada, pá, uma pouca vergonha, pá.
Sorreis, desculpe lá isso, hein?
É preciso lutar, meus amigos. Desculpa, Leve. Tive que... Eu não consigo. Eu não consigo. Começas a falar de Portugal e não sei o quê e eu só consigo pensar nesses gajos. Exato, está na hora de fechar o tasco, meu. Eu não acredito é que não... Sabes uma coisa? Eles têm a razão, meu. Devia ter havido termossos. Eu não tive termossos aqui. Tanto eu como vocês, meu. Devia haver termossos. Mas seja como for, olha, beijinhos. Obrigado pela companhia, como sempre. Se não fossem vocês, não sei, meu. E é isto, até à próxima. Very louco, é verdade. Cuidado com os papões que estão debaixo da cama. Espero que não sejam crianças a ver isto. Porque se elas tiverem, depois vão achar que têm mesmo papões debaixo da cama, meu. Eu tenho que pôr esta stream só para adultos. Esqueci-me de mudar essa opção no Twitch. Vá, beijinhos. Cá te espero de putada. Vá, siga.